Good morning. Happy Monday. Happy new week. Hopefully happy. There's a lot going on in the world today. There's Mexico. There's our friends in the Northeast that are having a blizzard. I'm going to play this stream by ear because we have a lot of viewers here from the Northeast, and I'm kind of going to bend and flex this stream to meet their needs today. I hope everyone's okay. I hope everyone's staying warm. Um, Today I want to talk about autism. This channel is largely, an education channel for mental health, men's mental health in particular, neurodivergent men, even more specifically, autism, ADHD, giftedness, which I consider a form of neurodivergence, and other things. So I want to focus on that topic today. Here's how the streams are going to work going forward. I'm experimenting with different formats. The first hour is going to be topic focused, and today's topic is neurodivergence. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I have a notebook lined up. Then I'll open the panel if you want to come up and specifically share your thoughts on this topic. Hey, IG. You're so smart. I can't believe you only come here for the stupid stuff. You're to me your insight and input would be so valuable for the more elevated content. But yeah, suit yourself. I don't know if we're always gonna do stupid on Friday. I mean, I kind of think we do stupid every day. I just mix it in with the smart stuff too. That's a spiky profile. That's exactly what we're gonna talk about today. So stick around for the spikes, and you can jet for the valleys if you want. So anyway, I've talked about this topic before, but I really want to give it the attention it deserves today. I've also shown this graphic before that I'm about to show. This overlap between autism, ADHD, giftedness. These are very broad categories. They're labels, diagnostic labels. Um, they don't really mean anything in the practical world of neurodivergent people just going about their day-to-day life and trying to interact with other humans. These are more clinical categories. They're used for things like if you have a kid in special ed that needs a certain type of educational service, they have to somehow fit themselves into this box to get the service. Sometimes you have medical interventions that require you having one of these labels to get a certain service. Outside of that, I don't really find them very useful for understanding ourselves and learning how to interact with other humans. But we can look at some of the traits like autism. They have hyper awareness of sensory information, routine, order, pattern recognition. Pattern recognition can also be giftedness. It can also be part of ADHD. Easily bored. Is that ADHD? Is it giftedness? So you get an idea of how clunky these categories are, how fuzzy, how broad. Atypical social interactions. I'm all three of these things. There's a new term called ADHD, which is kind of trying to combine these categories. And then in the educational system in America, you have the term 2E or twice exceptional, which adds giftedness into one or both of these categories. It's already complex and confusing for the average person. The average neurodivergent person, the average parent with neurodivergent children. So we're going to try to clean that up a little bit and look at a different way of conceptualizing this stuff. That is my goal today. Um, Yikes, hang on. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm gonna play the little notebook thing, and then I will come back and get the topic started. Hang on one second. All right, here we go. I will be back.
Hey, welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to try and untangle something that's, well, pretty confusing for a lot of people. The overlap between autism, ADHD, and even giftedness. The goal here, to find a more practical way to understand ourselves and, the people around us. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with the big problem, this great overlap. Then we'll dig into why these labels can feel so fuzzy. After that, I'm going to introduce a new way of looking at it, a new map, if you will. And we'll wrap up with some really practical tools you can start using today. All right, let's just dive right in. We're starting with a mystery that's probably familiar to a lot of you, that confusing and honestly often frustrating overlap between different diagnostic labels. I love this quote. It just nails it, right? The universe refuses to organize itself into neat diagnostic drawers just to make paperwork easier. Reality is messy. And, as we're about to see, the categories we use to talk about our brains, they're way fuzzier than you might think. So why? Why is it so incredibly hard to draw these clean lines between these conditions? Well, it turns out there are 4 key reasons the whole diagnostic system can sometimes feel like you're trying to perform surgery with a sledgehammer. Okay, let's break these down. First, you've got these shared under-the-hood traits, right? Things like sensory sensitivities or how you manage attention. They pop up all over the place, across different labels. Second, the diagnostic criteria themselves, they can be kind of blunt instruments. That line for getting a diagnosis isn't some law of nature. It's a threshold that experts have, well, they've agreed upon it. Third, there's this huge thing called the spiky profile problem, which we're going to talk about in a sec. And finally, it's just super common for these things to genuinely show up together. And this quote, this just perfectly captures that spiky profile idea we just mentioned. People can be brilliant and still can't start the email. That's not a paradox, it's Tuesday. I mean, come on. That's it, right? It's that experience of having these incredible, sometimes world-class strengths right next to these really significant challenges. A single label often just struggles to hold that seeming contradiction. So, if the old categories are so blurry, what do? Is there a better way to see things? Well, yeah, I think there is. Let's shift gears and move to a more precise, traits-based model. So we can think about this in 3 layers. Instead of these rigid on or off labels, I want you to imagine a set of continuous sliders, kind of like on a sound mixing board for different traits. Then you look at the unique, spiky shape your personal sliders create. And finally, the most important part, you identify where that specific profile creates friction in your life and figure out what kind of support you actually need. And this brings us to a really crucial point, the passport versus the map.
Hang on, is it skipping? Anyone else having the problem? It's working on my end, but things in the back end of StreamYard don't always appear like it does to the viewer. So if somebody else could let me know and confirm, because I want to get this information out there, so I don't want to keep playing if it's skippy. You think it's your connection, maybe? You know what? Let me pull it up on YouTube and see what it looks like. Hmm. It seems like it's working on my end. Oh, really? I just played a little bit on the main stream, and it seems like it's working on my end. I'm gonna keep playing it and let me know if it keeps happening, and then we'll troubleshoot. All right, I'm gonna drop. I'll back it up a bit.
So we can think about this in 3 layers. Instead of these rigid on or off labels, I want you to imagine a set of continuous sliders, kind of like on a sound mixing board for different traits. Then you look at the unique, spiky shape your personal sliders create. And finally, the most important part, you identify where that specific profile creates friction in your life and figure out what kind of support you actually need. And this brings us to a really crucial point, the passport versus the map. Think of a label like a passport. It can grant you access to things, right? Accommodations, a community, a shared language to describe your experience. It's incredibly valuable. But your traits, that's your map. That's the precise, personalized guide for navigating your unique brain every single day. So you see, you need both. Use the label when you need a passport,
but pull out your map for the day-to-day journey.
And that map leads us right to the most practical, hands-on part of this whole idea, finding your personal friction points. Okay, listen to this, because this is so important. A friction point is not a personal failing. It's not a character flaw. It is a specific, repeatable, predictable event that happens when your internal wiring collides with a demand from the outside world. It creates a cost: fatigue, shutdown, mistakes, avoidance. Think of it like a blinking light on your dashboard. It's not the problem itself. It's a clue that tells you exactly where your energy is being drained.
So, how about we try to build a simple dashboard right now? We can use 5 sliders that honestly explain a huge chunk of daily challenges. For each one, I'm going to ask a simple question. Just think about where you might land on that scale.
All right, slider number 1, input gain. This is all about your sensory world. The question is, how allergic are you to fluorescent lighting, random noises, and scratchy tags? Basically, how loud is the world to your nervous system? Are you that person who immediately notices the annoying hum from the refrigerator that nobody else can hear? Okay, slider number 2, switching tacks. This is about the cost of changing gears. So, when someone interrupts you, do you bounce back or want to commit mild arson? I mean, it's a funny way to put it, but it's real, right? How expensive is it for your brain to stop one thing and start another? Does a simple interruption throw you off for just a second, or does it completely derail your train of thought for the next 20 minutes? Slider number 3, spotlight width. This is all about your style of focus. Do you explore a topic like a tourist or like you're mining for ore? In other words, does your attention work like a wide floodlight, kind of scanning a bunch of things at once? Or is it more like a deep, narrow, powerful laser beam that's incredibly hard to pull away from once you're locked on? And number 4, this is a big one, subtext load. The question here is, do you speak explicit propositions while everyone else is speaking tone plus implication? Think about it. How much mental energy does it take for you to decode all the unsaid rules, the hints, the things people mean but don't actually say? Do you just wish everyone would be a little more direct? And our last one, slider number 5, voltage. This is about your baseline intensity. Do people react to you like you're a lot, even when you're being normal? How strong is your default signal? Does your normal, everyday level of passion or energy sometimes get misinterpreted by other people as something more extreme, like you're angry or being super urgent when you're just being you? And here is where it all clicks into place. This is what's so amazing about this. This table turns those questions we just asked into a genuinely functional dashboard for your life. It connects each one of those sliders to the exact kind of real-world situations that create that friction. All of a sudden, that personal map of yours isn't just some vague idea. It becomes clear, it becomes actionable. You can literally see where the sparks are going to fly. So once you have that map, once you can see your friction points clearly, you can stop trying to just bulldoze your way through them. You can start designing around them. This right here is where you get your power back.
And you have 4 really powerful levers to pull. Most of us are only taught to use one. Just try harder, push through it. But look at your other options. You can change the environment, find a quieter space. You can add scaffolding, use checklists, timers, whatever helps. You can change the interface, ask people to email you instead of calling. Or you can change the cost structure, literally schedule in recovery time after a draining event. It's a whole toolkit.
And this last quote just brings it all home, and it's maybe the most important takeaway of all. Friction points aren't moral failings. They're engineering constraints. Let that sink in. This whole process, it's not about finding out what's wrong with you. It's about finally understanding your own personal operating system and then designing a life that works with it, not constantly fighting against it. The goal isn't to fix some imaginary flaw. It's to become the engineer of a world that actually fits your unique, brilliant brain.
All right. Hopefully it didn't everyone got that was interested. I like that term, engineering constraints. I think that's a lot better way to think about it and a very autistic way to think about it. Lots of tism finds its way into engineering. One thing I think that the notebook did not touch on, which I want to expand a little bit, is this friction points, the domains that the friction points fall in. I'm going to use this little graphic. Um, there's more than 5. These are the 5 main ones that show up most often, but you could easily add probably 3 or 4 other trait clusters. The friction usually happens in one of 4 areas. When you're taking in information, either sensory information or social information. In my case, it's this subtext load, all of the vibes, the nonverbal stuff, the little cues. However, neurotypicals are telepathically communicating with each other, I do not get that signal. That is an input friction point. I am working off of less information than most people around me when it comes to social interaction. Another domain where the friction can show up is internally in the processing. This can happen a lot with ADHD, but also the other categories as well. The output, also, this is also sometimes called execution or executive functioning. Communication output, problem solving output. In my case, dyspraxia, which is more of a physical um, processing. It's the way your brain processes space in relation to your body and motor coordination, etc. I'm very clumsy. I'm very klutzy. That's all output friction. And then finally, recovery. How long does it take your brain to recover? They talked about switching task. Um, for autistic people, a lot of times we get locked into one assumption, framework, model, and when new information is introduced, we don't have the cognitive flexibility to just adapt to it right away. Sometimes I compare it to like trying to turn around a barge or an oil tanker in the middle of a river. It just takes us a while to make that mental shift. And in ADHD, sometimes the opposite happens. Um, your attention is shifting so quickly from one thing to another that you almost don't have time to fully focus on any one item. So you see a range of outcomes for each trait when they intersect or collide with these four domains. So once you figure out what your main traits are that are causing the friction when they meet the external world, you can map out which traits are operating in which domains and then troubleshoot around that or engineer around that, as the video said. In my case, a lot of it's this voltage. It's not so much input or processing, it's output. It's when my voltage, my natural emotional baseline meets other humans and it gets output a certain way where it's completely normal on my end. The rocking, the stemming, the emotional intensity, the passion, it shows up on this channel a lot. Many of you are familiar with it, but it can be perceived or received by the rest of the world, by people in a completely different way, as it said in that video, as anger or urgency or whatever. Sometimes I'm told I'm intimidating. Sometimes I'll just be looking at someone, like listening, just like looking, and they think I'm staring. They get very uncomfortable. They find it intimidating. And I don't know what to do about that other than communicate my end of it, or perhaps direct them to somebody that doesn't. I'm not in control of what happens inside of somebody else. This is also where that tone policing, emotion policing comes in. A lot of people, if they don't like your output or if they feel like it's interfering with them in some way, they'll try to manage it or police it. Recovery time, as it said in the video, that's very, very easy to plan for. If you know what your recovery window is in certain situations, when you're in those situations, you can plan for some extra time for that recovery. This happens with autistic meltdowns, tantrums, etc. All right, that is the topic for today. I'm going to bring Charlie up in just a second. Hang on, let me look at comments. I don't know. I that's a great question, RW, because I take it for I self-awareness comes very natural to me. I'm very aware of the processes that go on inside of me. I'm aware of my thoughts. I'm aware of my emotions. I'm aware of my reactions. So I just assume they're so obvious to me. I don't know how people cannot be aware. It's like when you're hungry and your stomach gurgles. Like, how can you not be aware of that? It's just something. Your body and your mind and your insides, to me, are more immediate to you than something more external than that, more removed from that. So I don't know why. I just assume people are very easily aware of that stuff, but I could be I could be in the minority. Maybe people are just not that sensitized to themselves. So I don't know. For me, it's very easy for people to understand themselves on this level. It doesn't seem like any great effort. Yeah, so, I think so too. I think self-awareness, I don't know, like I said, self-awareness comes easily to me, listening comes easily to me, taking in verbal information, processing verbal information, reading comes very easily to me. So I take it all for granted. I don't have a good sense of what it's like for people that it doesn't come easily to. I wanna think it can be learned or trained through practice, but then I don't know. I think it also depends on the individual. And those are my areas of strength. Speaking of spiky profiles, those are my spikes. Those are the things I'm really good at. I have deficits where normal people, like a 3-year-old child, is way more advanced in than I will ever be because of the valleys in my profile. Um, oh, really? Yeah. I can lock on the topics. I'm also very information based and I like epistemic closure. I like a resolution to the thoughts or the conversation. Um, so I tend to keep hammering and hammering and hammering until I get that closure to where it all starts to make sense. It's not just conversation to me is not just this open-ended small talk for vibe purposes. It I'm seeking very specific information and a very specific resolution to the conversation, especially if it's topic oriented. I know that's so hard for me, but also I was not as self-aware as a kid as I am now. So there's definitely been an increase in awareness as I progressed through life. So it's not completely innate or natural. There is a learning process to it as well. It's kind of like a feedback loop. As you become aware of yourself, you become more aware of things to become aware of and how to become aware of them. And then you apply that to new information, and then you become aware of that. And that generates new ways to become aware, et cetera. So it keeps iterating on itself. So I think self awareness at 55 is probably greater than self awareness at 22, as long as people are engaged in the process. If you never turn inward and focus on yourself and your own cognitive processes or self-reflect, then your self-awareness at 55 may not be that different than 23. Also, different life experiences bring opportunities for more awareness too. So depending on what your experiences are that you've encountered as you move through life, that's going to affect how aware you can be of yourself as well. Relationships can do it, traumatic events, as well as successes, achievements. 80%. I'm not sure what that means. So I'm gonna drop the link, and here's how it's gonna work. I'm trying a new experiment. I'm putting it in the Discord. There's a channel in the Discord for open panel links, and remember, this is a club. We have a velvet rope. So I have selected. It's a private channel. It's not open to everybody. I've selected the people that have demonstrated in the past that they're able to come on channel and have a intelligent, productive conversation. So those are the people that the link is going to be visible to. If you are not one of those people and you still passionately want to come up and contribute to this topic, let me know. I'll get the link to you somehow. But we're going to try a little more gatekeeping. And then I'm going to go for an hour on the topic. So if you come up to talk primarily about the topic, we can drift off into other things. We can drift off into philosophy, psychology, history, politics, if the purpose of the political discussion is to try to exercise our thinking ability and understand. Um, I don't want just people to come up to vent or doom spiral about politics or just throw out random conspiracy theories. So if you have a political position, be able to back it up with evidence or support your claim or be able to support why you believe what you believe based on facts and evidence. So we're going to try it this way and see what happens. And then after the hour, it's gonna be a little more open panel and a little looser. And in the future, I wanna start experimenting with transitioning to members only streams. So having the first hour be public and topic focused, and then the time after that, it'll be open panel, but it'll be more members, more of a tight knit circle. So there we go. The link is in the Discord. If you're not in Discord, you can hit me up at Gen X Jeff. I can get you an invite. If you don't have Discord, but you still want to come up and discuss the topic, let me know. I'll find a way to get the link to you. And the first hour, I want it to be dialogue, conversation, not monologues, not random chit chat that strays too far from what we're talking about that day. So there you go. In the meantime, considering everything going on in the world, I want to check in on the news. I also want to all of you in the Northeast, how is it? What's what are you experiencing? Is there anything we can do to help you guys? Whatever. It looks pretty dire up there. And some of the reports I'm getting behind the scenes, they've canceled travel for a lot of people. I remember growing up, they had the blizzard of 78. And I remember seeing it on TV. I remember seeing the footage, hearing about it on the news, and that was my first kind of introduction to what a blizzard is. What are you go gatekeeping? We do gatekeep here. This is a gay bar for straight men. So we do a lot of gatekeeping. I want to do more gatekeeping and less barkeeping. Hey, I would plow if I went up there because somebody was on here the other day and said you can make six figures if you get a good plowing operation going. Speaking of gatekeeping. So, okay. See, IG, we do stupid here. You don't have to wander off. I think you saw the title and the nerdy graphic and you got spooked. Probably a lot of people did. But they really should know better if they've watched my channel at all. You know, fun is one of the 5 pillars that this thing is built on. Oh, it was a good one. It there it it was rife with material. In fact, I had to hold myself back, put the brakes on. I didn't want to go in too hard. If you get my drift. All right, I'll stop. It's it's in the Discord, Sean. Do you want to come up? Are you in Discord? What's your Discord name? I didn't see yours. I can add you to the channel. If not, do you have a way I can email it to you? Worst case scenario, I can drop it in briefly just for you and then delete it. All right, I'm going to put it in, click it, come on up, and then I'll delete it. I'm just trying to cut down on the drama, the chaos, and the random drop-ins. I'll save that for after the first hour. All right, come on up, Sean. That's for you. Or any of the other regulars that want to have an intelligent conversation. Oh, yeah, and I remember your avatar, the Stones, so welcome. The Stones are always welcomed here. One of my favorite bands. Top 2 or 3 at least. I think the Beatles were probably more creatively innovative and possibly even more talented in what they do. But I think the Stones are more rock, rock music. So much of the rock music I do listen to, you can hear the Stones influence on it. All right. Sean's coming up, so let me get the link out. All right, let's welcome our first guest here to have intelligent conversation.
Hello.
Happy Monday. What's up today, sir?
Not much. I was just gonna. I don't know much about your topic. You're talking about special needs people, autistic, ADHD. I might be one of them, so I'm the type of guy who might be one of them. But I'm not diagnosed autistic.
Yeah, special needs is such a, I don't know, something in me resists that term. I mean, I don't think my needs are that I don't know. It connotes, to me, it connotes special ed or
What
special
do
program.
they use now? What's the term that they use now?
There's not any one term. I use neurodivergence as a placeholder because it's
All
the
right.
broadest. But some people say autism, ADHD, ADHD, 2E, twice exceptional, gifted, straight up autistic. Sometimes you still hear Asperger's or Spurg.
Yeah,
So
I mean
even
now
though you may
they're
not
taking
know
care of.
much about the topic, if you suspect that you are, you probably know more than you think just from your life experience.
Yeah, but the people now are taking care of those people more than before. Nowadays, people know more about it, so it's good to be special needs nowadays. I mean, back in the days, it was probably not that great.
I think it's both. I think they're catching it earlier in the education system so they can get the right kind of differentiated instruction for the kids that need it. But I think as an adult, it's still, people still don't know what to do with it. Even if you tell someone you're autistic or neurodivergent, it really doesn't mean anything and it really doesn't translate into improved social interactions. I mean, you're still weird, you're still spurgy. They still stigmatize the same stuff they've always stigmatized. Um, Inability to pick up on subtext, nonverbal cues. You're still like you give off a creepy vibe, especially toward a lot of women. You're still weird. You're still emotionally intense. Too much. Too this. You still get tone policed, etc. So I don't know that in the adult world, the education or the increased awareness of it has done much. I think it's up to individual neurodivergent people to advocate for themselves and self-accommodate where they can and not depend on neurotypicals or normies to adjust.
So people that have depression and anxiety, they wouldn't be all autistic or neurodivergent.
I mean, they could be. It's a separate, anybody can be anxious or depressed, normies too. So to me, that's a completely separate axis. I don't know that there's anything about neurodivergence specifically that would make them more prone to anxiety and depression other than the frustration of maybe trying to interface socially and having repeated failures could lead to a sense of defeat or hopelessness or
Yeah, those
despair.
people
That's more
are probably more
situational.
prone. They're more prone to those feelings.
I don't know. I don't want to make that claim, but I
You
don't
don't
know.
think
I don't know what the
neurodivergent are
research
more?
is or even if there is research out there for that. So it's just random speculation.
Well, I would suspect they are, but anyway. So, what were you talking about there? Can you give me a gist of? Because I'm not an expert. Sorry.
A gist of what?
Of what you were talking about again?
Like the whole topic? Just go back and watch the screen. Only
No,
about 5 minutes.
a short example or something. Hello,
Hey guys.
hello, RW.
Welcome,
Howdy.
welcome. What's up?
I had a question in the chat to the side that I deleted by accident, but it was basically along the lines of when an individual is locked in like a barge, like you were talking about, what is a respectful way to cut into, because usually they'll start rambling and cycling like and repeating information, and how do you respectfully like dig into their talking and help to add data to push the conversation forward instead of just sitting there and listening to the loop?
You, it's random. It's rambling and looping. To them, it may not be. I think that's a neurotypical bias. I, if it's like just in conversation, like if you and I were talking and I start what you call looping on a topic. Sometimes also what's perceived as looping is the person trying to add nuance. So it's not always a loop. They're adding new information each time. It just sounds like a loop to people that are not being closely attentive to what the person's trying to do. But if it's happening during communication, to me, that's a communication issue. And it could be processing related or it could be output related. Um, I'm just direct. If somebody's looping and I need to interject information, I just do it. Like,
Yeah. I don't have trouble with that if I'm friends with them and we've talked a lot before because they know where I'm coming from. I was just curious. I don't interact with many people outside of friendship that on that level. So I guess I was curious if I ever.
everyone's different, so it's trial and error. You kind of just have to try different approaches with each person and see what works and what doesn't work, and then
Mhm.
adjust based on either their reaction or what they verbally tell you in response. Like if I was looping or perceived to be looping and you cut in on me, I might tell you, "Oh, no, that's not what I was doing. I'm trying to say this, this, and this." And so, but another person might have a completely different reaction.
Sometimes it seems like the individual is trying to explain to me something that I already understand, and they're trying to reinforce the understanding that I've already understood like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times before. So I'm just trying to allow the conversation to push on to the next point. Um, and it's usually for me and Hells. So me and Hells will be go into a conversation, and he'll be someone that will say the same thing many ways, and we have the understanding and respectful agreement that if I'm cutting into this conversation, it's because I understand what he's saying and I'm trying to get to the next point.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Do you tell them that, and they just keep doing it anyway?
Yeah, just because that's how they communicate. That's their communication style. So it's because that is a constant. I've asked them, do they care if I continue to cut into their conversation because it's just a constant. So it's like a verbal agreement for communication.
Do they? Does it work? Like, do
Yeah,
they adjust?
they
Okay.
don't. Health doesn't realize he's doing it, so he's okay if I push.
What's an
But
example, like something he would loop on?
um,
And normies can loop as
it's
well. I
it's
just
like the
want.
barge. It reminded me because you're talking about this barge where you're pushing forward on information and you can't just quickly turn it. So his mind is pushing forward on whatever topic. It doesn't matter what it is, and he'll push forward and he'll explain it and then he'll recycle back and start to say the same thing again, but a little tiny bit differently or whatever. And for me, I understand what he's saying, so it seems more beneficial for us to be able to talk about more if I'm able to continue to help turn the barge instead of just allow the barge to go for 5 or 10 minutes when it only needed one.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that too. I mean, that would frustrate me as well. I would want the conversation to move along. Um, I would use communication to do it. Like, yeah, I get you. I get that part. Let's talk about this, or what are you trying to say past that, or where do you go from there? Okay, I get that point. Where are you taking this? You could use guiding questions to kind of steer the barge out of its fixation.
Yeah, that's the goal. And this is all when there's no elevation in emotion or anything. Not like it's very different when my son starts to have a meltdown. Then it's a very different uh, interaction. That's more of a that's I'm still on that learning curve at the moment.
And also,
RW,
there's
sorry. Sorry.
let me cut in
Have
real
you
quick.
ever asked a doctor?
Hang on, Sean.
Sorry.
One sec. Let me, because I want to talk about the meltdown. There's meltdowns, there's tantrums, there's triggers. So there's many different phenomena that are internally different, but they can all appear the same to the outside observer. And so learning which one he's actually having at any given time is going to be helpful too. And the best thing to do for a meltdown is that's a recovery thing, is to just give them the space to recover from it. Don't try to necessarily do anything during the meltdown other
Right.
than give them space and then any kind of soothing if they need it or ask for it. All right, Sean.
I'll ask a question back after Sean's question.
But like, have you ever asked a doctor or professional, or do you not trust the mainstream medical system? You don't want to give him drugs.
Well, I'm definitely not giving him drugs because I don't think he needs drugs. He's just a human being that's different.
I am a professional, Sean. I'm a peer counselor that specializes in
All right.
neurodivergent men. And
But-
but you bring up a good point, because one of the issues is the medicalization of these conditions and thinking that you need a doctor or some kind of medical expert to treat it, when oftentimes you don't, especially as an adult. And even as a child, a lot of it outside of the early developmental stages where they're learning how to socialize, a lot of it's just educational interventions to help them learn better. None of that
Right.
requires doctors.
I think a response directly to Sean's question is I'm not seeking out medical help for the situation because I want to be able to understand it and relate to it personally. And if I can't do that, if it gets to a point where I cannot do that, then I will seek beyond myself, but I'm not there yet. I mean, I'm talking to Jeff too, which is kind of like phase 2 for me, but it's to
Fair enough.
reflect and share experience and relate to to share experiences.
Right. Yeah, I understand. But like
What was the
the
purpose of
mental
your
health
question?
field is quite controversial. The RFK Jr., I think, doesn't like the drugs on it. He thinks there's too many drugs involved, and I kind of agree with him, but I'm not expert on it. So
I'm not really, I don't really work with the medical side of it either. And just because someone's neurodivergent doesn't mean they're going to require
My
medical
experience in American culture in my
medication.
lifetime is that Americans throw drugs at situations before they are going to discover any other resolution. So like for my generation, if a kid had ADHD, he had Ritalin and then he sat down like a zombie in class. So that was the solution. And then when I was older in high school, there was much more specialized teaching and stuff, and Ritalin was not the popular solution anymore. So I don't look at things personally as I need to fix this with drugs right away. I always try to look at a natural, non-invasive solution if there is one.
I use as little medicine as I possibly can, even for like over the counter complaints. I only take Tylenol or aspirin when I absolutely have to. I only use antacids when I absolutely have to, but that's just me. That's just a me thing. I'm very conservative when it comes to putting drugs in my body.
You said that
So
there's
you
three
think-
different. Go ahead, Sean.
So you think your kid is like maybe neurodivergent and he's causing a bit of trouble. So maybe, are you homeschooling?
Yes.
Yeah, that could be maybe one reason he's like bored or something. Maybe if he was with other kids, he might be, I don't know, maybe not, because there's still a lot of crazies in school. But I was never homeschooled, so I don't know.
What kind of trouble you think he's causing? Why did you use that phrasing?
Well,
Like
he's
us being
different.
different is only trouble if the people that are working with us frame it that way. I don't think it has to be trouble.
Well, you know, a lot of boys are more active and they're less calm than females.
Yeah, I
Boys are
don't consider
more.
that trouble. Boys being boys is not trouble.
The
Unless
trouble
the adults make it into trouble.
The trouble is not
If
knowing
they're
how to
doing
relate.
specific things, if they're vandalizing or attacking other children, yeah, that could be trouble. But just because he has a neurodivergent kid to assume he's somehow causing some kind of trouble.
I mean, he is in different ways. It's interesting that you asked the question back at him, but I mean, there's the aspect of him being a young boy, which is just that comes with a certain amount of stress and trouble, and then there's being able to relate to a mind that's different than mine, and the trouble of being able to relate. So that's where the trouble comes in with him being neurodivergent in ways. But that just piles on top of the fact that he's a very healthy, energetic young boy.
What kind of trouble does he cause?
He's very destructive, and he's also you know how you were talking about how you're not aware of your surrounding as much.
Okay.
Well, if you add a lot of energy and jumping around and doing a lot of stuff with that, I got to pay a lot of attention, because it's like this kid's trying to kill himself all the time.
Oh yeah,
You know,
that was me.
like the other day, his brother was showing a knife that he had to my sister that was visiting, and just randomly from across the room, he jumps straight up in the air over the knife and almost lands on the knife. It's just the chances of that are almost 1% or less. But with him in particular, there's something about it where it's not 1%, it's more like 75%. So that's the type of, it's just adds it like you said, when you're learning to teach an individual with special needs, or I would say just anybody in particular, you have to learn that individual. You have to have the stress and trouble of learning that individual, and then you can resonate and hopefully come to, a solid foundation with that individual.
Always get to know the person, and that's true with neurodivergence, mental health, ordinary people, friendships, relationships. Focus on that person as an individual. That's why I'm very individualized and person-centered. I think that's by far the best approach.
You mentioned that
I
there's
was that kid. I am surprised I survived to the age that I did. I'm still that kid.
right.
I had so many near-death incidences growing up where I barely escaped by the skin of my teeth. I got myself into so much trouble by not being aware of my surroundings. And my stepdad is the person I remember very often pulling me out of things. Like, he was keeping he was watching out for things that I wasn't, and he was always catching me just in the nick of time to avoid
Right.
trouble. I remember him, of all the adults around, kind of paying the most attention to that. So I'm glad he has somebody like you, because that's what it took with me.
Well,
I was
need to
very
step my game up
dangerous
as
to
well.
leave on my own, even though I spent a lot of time on my own.
It's the trouble is the stress, because if I was on his level of that energy and stuff, I'd be willing to watch all the time, but I'm a lazier or less energetic person, so it's very taxing to do that for 2/3 of the day.
Is there someone you can spread the load with?
Oh, the family here all spreads the load. We spread that load. He makes sure that he pulls energy from everybody as equally as possible. I do want to ask a question towards the 3 different forms of meltdown, because I said meltdown and you said that there's 3 different things. Can you explain to me what they are and why they're different?
A meltdown is usually overwhelm, either sensory or processing, or your nervous system is just taking on more than it can process, and it just starts to shut down. And it's a cascade effect. Once it starts, it kind of builds on itself until it gets to this point of just collapse. The functioning starts to collapse, and usually they just need space to recover. A tantrum is usually when they don't get their way and they throw a fit, and that's more manipulative. You can tell a tantrum by a tantrum can usually end like that. Either if they get their way, or you draw some kind of firm boundary and they realize they're not going to get their way, or they're trying to get something out of you that they realize they're not going to get. It's less, they're more in control of a tantrum. It's less at the mercy of the timing of their nervous system. A trigger is more trauma related, and recovering from a trigger, it's your parasympathetic nervous system kind of activated, or your sympathetic nervous system activated, and that's why I use things like cold water. Some people use breathing, anything that's going to switch that sympathetic nervous system back down to the parasympathetic. That's your stress response, your fight or flight. A meltdown is not fight or flight; it's just overwhelm.
So for
And
me,
a tantrum is more directed consciously.
for me, it's a tantrum that turns into a meltdown if the tantrum is not handled correctly.
And a lot of tantrums are frustration based too. They're either trying to
Right.
do something, trying to get their needs met or their wants met, or try to communicate something, and they're not able to do it successfully. And they get frustrated either in that moment or there's a buildup to the frustration.
Right. And I give them credit because their tantrums are not based off of just simple selfish impulse, like they didn't get what they wanted. Their tantrum triggers when they believe that there was an injustice, like they understood something and then that thing was not done. And then there, once that barge is moving, that barge is, full speed ahead, and being able to slow that down or solve that situation without it turning into a meltdown is extremely difficult, because I'm very stubborn too and I'm not going to bend. So we're like two um immovable objects that are meeting, and it's I'm just curious to see if it gets easier as he gets older, but I don't think so, because I'll see. This seems like a core value. Like, I respect his core value because we both honor and respect justice to a very high degree, and when we see injustice, we get righteous indignation. So I respect it, but I want them to be able to understand the nuances of why there's a difference between what he thinks is injustice and why it's not. So that's where the trouble is, because it's too high of a level of communication or something. His brain isn't there yet.
Well, I was gonna say, like, awareness usually goes a long way toward that. Both his own, as because I still experiences that as an adult. I'm just more aware of it, so I know what's going on when it happens, and I can troubleshoot my way out of it better. So the more aware he becomes of his own process, it's like, okay, this is my body's doing this because I'm frustrated. I'm trying to do this. It's not working for these reasons. He'll be able to take more control over that process, but also understanding and awareness on your part as well. Once you become more aware of what's going on inside of him, it's going to be less a battle of wills and more of a how can I help him resolve this internally for himself.
I mean, I can verbally speak to him and say, you're breathing this way, you're doing this thing, you're thinking this way, or whatever, because of this, this, and this. I can explain to him what I'm watching and relating it to why. But if I'm not able to change my will, or unwilling to change my stance, then the issue isn't going to go away. It's just a matter of him understanding his reaction to it, even if we disagree.
And
Is this
and you're
from
the
what you're?
adult, so you're way more likely to be able to change than he is. Like, you have way more skill than he has at this age. So if anybody's gonna be able to shift it a bit, it's probably gonna more likely be you than him. Also, when you're describing what you see, are you also trying to understand it from his point through questions like, I notice you're breathing this way. What's going on inside of you? Or what are you thinking? Or what are you feeling right now? Like, and get him in the habit of starting to describe his own internal process so you can match it to what you're experiencing externally.
Okay, that'd be a good
Like, make it more
side
collaborative.
conversation.
Like, you both have the same goal. He probably wants out of this state, and you probably want to be able to help him out of this state. So that's a common shared goal that you can take a more collaborative stance towards.
Yes, and I'm willing to do that if I don't have to change my stance as a parent. Like, if the issue is something to do with, I'm not willing to allow them to have that or do that for their own safety or well-being, I'm not changing. So they're going to have to just get through it or something.
I mean, if it's a boundary that you're trying to draw, and sometimes they're just going to have to understand. Like, for me, when authority figures are trying to draw a boundary, the more I understand why, the easier it is for me to accept the break. If it's just arbitrary, like because I said so, that's going to provoke a much stronger defensive reaction to me. Then this is why the boundary exists. It's for this reason. I want you to learn this, or I care about you and I want to prevent this, etc. And once I understand why the person's imposing it, it makes it a lot easier to accept and
I
sometimes
respect
even
that,
internalize.
but it's very hard the second or third or fourth time for the same issue. You know, like if someone shows that they have no recollection of that conversation, because again, it's a young child. So I don't know how much this has to do with personal character or any issues or whatsoever. But the second or third or fourth time, I'm not patient. The second time I have to explain something, it's because I said so.
I was about to say the biggest resource that it takes in this, in addition to curiosity, which drives understanding, is patience. Like the more
Yeah.
patience you have, the more successful you're going to be at this.
I'm not going to argue with you. I'm telling you my weaknesses.
However, but patience can be cultivated too, especially by adults.
I'm more patient now than I was before I had kids, but you know,
Well,
I'll have to
that's
see
progress.
when I die, we'll have to see the difference between the A and B. It's a slow progression.
If your patience is increasing at all, that's progress. So
Yeah.
like take that as a win.
But are you teaching him well, like all the basics, all the school stuff? Who's teaching him? Who's homeschooling?
It's multiple people. There's multiple generations here, and he has multiple experiences, whether it's books or actual prac work, like going out and using math in real life experiences, or building or gardening or whatever. So the answer is multiple people, and yes, both of the one child is advanced and the other child is still slightly advanced on par, but we've slowed down to not push it at the same speed as the other child. So what the curriculum is for North Carolina, he's advanced. I have a different standard. I've backed off my standard. So we're kind of just going with the flow now to see how it goes.
Yeah, homeschooling is quite popular in America, so it's pretty interesting.
It's getting even more popular when you take a look at what's going on inside of a lot of these schools.
Right. Trust of society has plummeted. So that's my issue. I don't trust the curriculum, and I don't trust the students, and I don't like the probability of something that I wasn't there for and what they experience and all that. I'm going to protect them the way I'm protecting them, and then when they're older, they'll have more than enough opportunity to deal with all that crap.
And even with normies, there's no guidebook for parenting. Every parent is figuring it out as they go and doing the best they can.
I agree. And every generation is different.
Yeah.
They say there's nothing new under the sun, but my grandfather didn't grow up with social media. So while the same concepts of society and humanity may be there, they're not as concentrated and perverse or whatever as myself and my children have at their fingertips.
And who knows what he's going to grow up with as a teen with the acceleration that's going on today, especially
Exactly.
with AI.
I mean, by the time he's my age, considering when we were young, it was what, Nintendo and Commodore 64.
We had Speak and Spell. We had Teddy Ruxpin. There were very few like mechanical things you could actually interact with that would talk back to you.
Right. So
And
I
they
think
were mostly toys. They were playthings. They weren't anything practical.
It'll be augmented reality with some more advanced, definitely wearables, but probably by then Neuralink technologies that are a lot of people will be opting in for, like a Neuralink implant technology. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they are by then. So if you're never unplugging from the network or the what we are on now, I don't know what that will do to society.
We're already look at the adult. We're not even unplugging.
Right. And I know. What's up, Sean?
He does have a phone.
They have old smartphones that I do not allow them on the internet unless they're next to me to play some games, so that the games give them their dailies. You know, that dopamine drip daily. Yeah. So internet is extremely regulated because I grew up without regulation on America Online, and that was a dark web.
How old were you when that came about?
11.
Oh God, you were on AOL at 11?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'll never let my children have that opportunity.
Yeah, didn't they have like an AOL for kids version?
We found a way around it if they did.
Oh. Um,
I'd say that there's more than one
There's
category there.
I don't know, Fatty. I'm not. I don't want to generalize about all teachers, but I think a case could be made that this is not true for some teachers. There's definitely a political agenda behind either why they go into teaching or they adopt at some point in their training to be teachers.
Or by embracing that lifestyle themselves, they become a zealot for it, and it's spread cheerfully to their students. Where I think there should be a serious barrier between personal life and belief and curriculum.
I mean, this is a great opportunity to show this photo. Hang on. I mean, you saw those videos the other day of the kids walking out of. Oh, I'm going to play this other video of a kid too, walking out of the ICE protests and beating up on cops. And there's other videos like that. That was just one school. This is where I am. This is in my state. Look at the education that these kids are getting. Can't spell. They've adopted this moral panic that America is this fascist nation trying to kick out brown people. I don't have no idea what's going. This is the education. This is what it's producing. There was nothing like this when I was in school. Not even. I remember in 4th grade, we wrote letters to the hostages in Iran, and the teacher mailed them off, and we put them in a big envelope, and they got sent to Iran. And it was. I remember that project. That's as political as my education ever got. And in 8th grade, we had to take in news stories and discuss them. It was called current events, and you could
I remember that.
take in any story. They weren't politically slanted one way or the other.
I remember that. Social studies, yeah.
Yeah, it was in social studies. You'd clip it out of the paper or something, and you'd read it to the class, and then every now and then you'd discuss.
Yeah, it's basically what we're doing right now. Or that's what I do on the pub, I guess. It really stuck with me.
But I want to show this this video of this kid because this disturbs me more than almost anything I've seen in the recent weeks. Because this is the fucking parent that's encouraging this.
So
He thinks it's cute. He's doing it for social media.
So
He's saying S-O?
So he's raising a defiant child as if they children don't come out defiant enough. I want to think this parent is aberrant and in the minority. But like if parents like this are raising animals like this, I have no hope for society. He's normalizing this. Look at this shit. That's pretty much it.
Are you willing to take Fatty's claim and ask Charlie a percentage breakdown? Because there's large density population in cities, and it's very possible that 50% of the cities are are where schools are, as well as the fact that leftist teachers can be in rural schools. So I can understand the point that's trying to be made, but based off of actual information, I have trouble accepting that claim.
Is Fatty saying that there's right-leaning teachers that are indoctrinating kids into what? The Supreme Court already struck down religion in schools and 10 Commandments in schools. What are you worried they're indoctrinating people? And where are the right-wing students out there protesting in the street with signs that they can't even spell?
Well, the private
No one said
Christian
it did,
schools.
but I can show other examples too, especially of kids mobbing the cops.
Well, I'm kind of lefty, but the private Christian schools and the homeschoolers are usually more right-leaning.
I mean, I can disagree with that also because I've done a lot of work with kids in Australia that grew up through the Catholic school system, and they're far from conservative. They just dealt with it because they had to, and once they were out, they were very liberal.
Okay, what question do you want me to? First of all, Charlie, we have a few questions. How are you doing this morning?
Jeff, I'm operating at a smooth cruising altitude this morning. No turbulence, plenty of brain fuel. Fire away with your questions. No parachute
Sexy
required.
pilot you. Are most schools in the U.S. rural schools in red states?
No scenic detours here. Most schools in the U.S. aren't rural. In fact, the majority of students are in suburban or urban areas. And red states,
Thank you.
they've got a range of rural and urban schools, but that's not the defining feature. It's more like a patchwork quilt than a monolithic landscape.
And there's also a claim being made, like we know that there's accusations of teachers indoctrinating kids into left-wing ideology. But there's also the claim being made that in rural areas, there are right-wing teachers attempting to indoctrinate children to right-wing ideology. And I'm trying to figure out, A, if that's true and what that would even be, since they're not allowed to indoctrinate them into Christianity or any kind of religion. What would they be indoctrinating them into?
All right, let's cleave the fog with a sharp blade of honesty. There's no grand scoreboard proving teachers left or right are running secret indoctrination factories en masse. If there's influence, it's often more subtle, like the wind nudging a weather vane, and it's often more about cultural attitudes, patriotism, individualism, or skepticism of government, for instance. But let's be real. Schools aren't monoliths of ideological factories. A teacher might lean into certain values like personal responsibility or skepticism of big institutions, but indoctrination's a big claim, and in reality, most teachers are too busy wrangling schedules and paperwork to orchestrate a grand ideological master plan.
I've seen so many examples of left-wing indoctrination. In fact, there are several websites that document it across the country, very specific incidences in specific schools.
Now is the argument
You'll find
that
curated lists of all sorts online, left, right, and sideways. But let's slice through the noise. Anecdotal examples, even if true, don't magically turn into widespread reality. It's like pointing to a few storm
What if
clouds.
the examples are like in the hundreds?
Even a few hundred cases in a country with tens of thousands of schools is still a drop in the ocean. That doesn't make them irrelevant. Every case counts, but it doesn't mean the entire sea is shifting. If hundreds of fireflies are flickering, we should look at them, but we shouldn't confuse them with lightning. Interrogate them, sure, but don't mistake anecdotes for the weather forecast.
Okay. What were you saying, RW?
I'm just trying to form a question because I mean, I'm being, life experience is anecdotal. Okay. In my life experience, liberal people express their feelings and views very differently than right-leaning people and centrists and libertarians. And I think it's a thing. If it's, is it just anecdotal if culture is actually a certain way? Is it just my life
Charlie,
experience?
is it anecdotal if it's cultural? Like culture seems larger than just anecdotal. So can you call it anecdotal if there is indeed large cultural shifts in the schools?
Culture's definitely bigger than anecdotes. It's like a tide. Well, anecdotes are pebbles. But to call it cultural, you need more than a pile of pebbles. You need data showing broad patterns, not just a collection of stories.
I would say there
If the
is.
tide is actually shifting, like a measurable tilt toward certain values, you'd see it in curricula, policies, and broad surveys. Without that, we're just amplifying a few pebbles and calling it a tidal wave.
Well, I
It's
was
not
about to
global.
say it's in the training curricula, like the teacher training at academies where the teachers go to learn to teach in the first place. It's definitely in those curriculum and policies. And how many anecdotal examples would reach the critical mass where you would consider it more than just anecdote and start to become cultural? Broad patterns, as you say.
Culture is a mosaic, not a magic number. But if you want to spot patterns, you'd need studies across regions, schools, and training programs. A few hundred anecdotes still won't make culture, but actual research showing shifts in what's taught, how it's taught, and how it's reflected in student outcomes. That's when we step beyond isolated examples and into the realm of a broader shift.
Well, I definitely think it's not hard to find examples of what's taught in the schools, the training curriculum.
Sure, you can find examples, but what matters is what's pervasive. If the tide of training is leaning us in a certain way broadly, that'll show up in large-scale research or policy shifts, not just a few loud outliers. So if you think it's widespread, look for large, well-done studies, because a handful of examples is just the start of a story, not the ending.
And then what about all these kids that are ditching class to go on these political protests?
Well, kids skipping class to protest isn't new or one-sided. It's more like a centuries-old teenage rite of passage. Whether it's the 60s or today, they'll mobilize over climate, guns, you name it. But that's not a teacher-led conspiracy. That's often students flexing their own moral muscles. It's messy and sometimes driven by their own passions. If anything, it shows that young minds left, right, or in between are itching to shape the world, sometimes outside the classroom walls.
It's a very generous reading of it. And yes, some of this is absolutely teacher-led. And we did not do it in my day. I didn't skip class one time for a political protest that none of the teachers would have allowed it. And the generation beneath me, my friends' kids, my nieces, my nephews, none of them left class to politically protest. So this is not a centuries-old teenage rite of passage. At least it wasn't in my parents' generation, my generation, and the generation immediate below me.
No, like three tardies and you
Fair
had
enough,
Saturday
your
school?
experience stands. But generations aren't carbon copies. What's shifted is the broader cultural moment. Today's media saturation and access to information have amplified activism in ways previous generations didn't encounter. It's not about generosity. It's about context. If teachers are leading protests, sure, question that. But also recognize that societal tides shift, and kids, past or present, often ride them in their own way.
Well, it sounds like you just made my argument for a cultural shift, so thank you for that.
If there's a shift, I'm just pointing at the horizon you're already watching. Cultures evolve, no denying that. But if we're truly curious, we measure that shift, not just assuming. So if you're seeing a tide, let's see what's under the surface. Because the truth's always more interesting when we dive a bit deeper.
Evolve is a value judgment, by the way, not an objective fact.
Fair. Let's strip the varnish. Cultures shift, morph, contort, no halo implied. Whether that's a rising tide or a receding one depends on vantage. But what is objective is how we measure it, and that's where evidence cuts sharper than vibes.
So
value
how about
aside,
Charlie
let's always
measures it
ask,
for us instead of telling us
what's
how
the
much it's not
baseline?
happening?
And where's the real shift?
Charlie's telling us how it's
Well, do you have access to studies or anything we can start with as a measurement?
Research shows that teachers' political views do vary, but large-scale studies don't show systematic indoctrination in the US. Instead, how teachers handle controversial topics differs from classroom to classroom. Teacher training programs are discussing bias more, but evidence of a uniform political push isn't clear. In some countries like China, ideological education is more explicit. In the US, anti-bias curricula are growing, which some consider ideological, but overall, there's no definitive national pattern.
Okay, and can you drop some actual sources that I could look up? Oh, he did. He dropped some links. Okay. Also, Charlie's a lot better in
Exactly. You've got a
text than he is
starting
in
point now.
voice. He
Dive
has
into
more
those sources like a
capacity
treasure hunt.
when
The
he's not
gold
on
isn't in
voice,
one
so
coin, but in the whole
I
chest
can
of
always
data.
explore this.
And with
in
that, you'll
text
see more
content
than anecdotes. You'll see the
later.
patterns, or lack thereof.
I would
Have
think
the
that
real story.
For tomorrow.
I would think that he has the ability to access data from 2020 till now and know if there was a major growing trend or uptick in liberal events in the public school system that caused problems in society, that there was an outcry from in society because it was an abuse of their power.
What I think the more specific you get, the better he's gonna be at
I think the
accessing that.
internet
So
had a
like
big part to play in it.
what types of events or what liberal positions or what kind of outcry?
Gender
etc.? Otherwise,
ideology was a major
talking
one.
vaguely like he is now.
Gender ideology during COVID in school systems.
Okay. Do you have anything you can access that shows the trends of teaching gender ideology, that there are more than two genders and gender is different from biological sex, etc., since 2020 up to now in the public schools in America?
Since
That's a lot.
2020, U.S. public schools have seen a mixed landscape regarding gender identity. A small but growing percentage of high school students identify as transgender or questioning, and some schools have adopted more LGBTQ supportive practices. However, there's also been a rise in state laws that restrict discussing gender identity in classrooms. Overall, what students experience varies widely depending on local policies, and there's no uniform national trend.
So that's sidestepping the issue. So during 2020, there was an uptick in that situation. And now there's law pushing back against the ability for schools and government facilities and institutions to be able to discuss and indoctrinate those things.
Okay, the claim is being made, Charlie, that in 2020 there definitely was an uptick in gender ideology, and that's what led to some of the laws pushing back on it or restricting it. So the laws wouldn't even have been necessary or made it through politically if there was a trend, a rising trend that they were designed to help curb.
That's plausible. Laws often react to perceived shifts, whether they're ripples or waves. There was more national attention on gender identity education post-2020, even if the scale varies. But laws sometimes outpace reality. So yes, even a perceived or localized trend can trigger broader political responses. The key
He's
is knowing the
absolutely
difference
not
between a
answering the
local
question.
gust of
That's
wind
frustrating.
and a nationwide storm.
I'm telling, the more specific you can make the question, the better. Like, do you have access to the official national education standards from the government related to this particular policy of that, et cetera? Otherwise, he's gonna fold it all into cultural shifts, and it
I
varies
digress.
across the
I digress. I mean, I could dig it myself. I know that I can prove it. I don't care to prove it. I just think it's interesting how generalized answers can be and how hard it is to have a conversation. I feel like I'm just being gaslit a lot.
He does
depending on-
gaslight sometimes, and a lot of this is voice. It's different. He goes into way more detail in text than he's able to in voice. He only gives like 2 or 3 sentences in voice at all, and it's very generalized. Charlie, is there anything in the national education standards for the U.S. from 2020 to now that has changed or shifted in policies related to gender ideology that you can find?
Since 2020, there have been updates to the national sex education standards that include defining gender identity and discussing gender stereotypes in early grades, but these are optional for states. Title IX protections have been clarified to cover gender identity, but
It's
local
okay, Jeff.
enforcement
They're
varies.
optional.
Some states have adopted inclusive curricula, while others have passed laws restricting discussions of gender identity. Overall, there's no uniform national policy. It's a patchwork, depending on each state.
He's skipping the
Actually,
timeline.
there's a Supreme Court case currently that we're waiting on a ruling on about does gender identity count as sex discrimination, et cetera. It was the trans people in sports, but that's one of the principles that it rests on. And so
Right.
that's kind of up in the air until they make their ruling.
And it's to me, it's not a matter of, yes, there were definitely people that fearmonger on every side of every issue. But there's also people that are just bringing awareness to the situation. And there's a lot of people in society that had no idea that these schools were doing these things or had these books in libraries or had teachers that were allowing certain conversations to happen or were convincing them to do certain things. So that awareness caused a major outcry. And now there's legislation that's pushing back against those things because it's an absolute abuse of power of these institutions. So I don't understand how that's a problem or that didn't happen. I that's what frustrates me. Like, based on how
In
you
Washington
conceive
State, the
history.
opposite is happening. They're pushing laws to restrict the rights of parents and how much information parents are allowed to have from the school system. So they're pushing to centralize the power with the teachers in the schools even more. So some states are trying to empower the parents, and some states are moving to disempower the parents.
And this is the difference between liberal and conservative politics, because the issue started on the same platform during COVID, and then it split in two different directions with awareness. Conservatives pushed back and created legislation against it, and liberals pushed for it to give more power to the individual and less for the parents. So the institution and the individual have the power, and the parents don't have a say. That's a liberal mindset.
Charlie, when it comes to parental rights, some states are passing laws to support stronger parental rights and parents' access to information about their kid in school, particularly around issues such as gender, social transition, etc. And then other states are going in the opposite direction and making laws that restrict parental rights and parental access to that kind of information. So there's an obvious split from state to state. Does it split along political lines? Are more right-leaning states passing the first type of law and more left-leaning states passing the second type of law? This seems like a fundamental opposition in values.
You've hit the nail. It does split along political lines. Right-leaning states have largely pushed for laws emphasizing parental rights, like mandatory notification about social transitions. Left-leaning states have often prioritized student privacy, sometimes limiting parental involvement. It's a tug of war in values, all right. The terrain isn't neutral. It's a patchwork reflecting broader political divides.
That is a
One side's
major
guarding autonomy,
schism in
the other is
cultural
guarding
norm.
parental authority.
Well, I'm gonna
Major.
get him. Well, how is that not a cultural shift? That's exactly what we've been talking about. There is some kind of shift. And in the states that are passing the laws to reduce parental rights, you're also seeing an increase in what they're teaching in school around gender ideology.
You've got a point. Shifts in policy, whether expanding or restricting, signal cultural currents. The debate itself over what's taught and who decides is a cultural tremor. But a shift isn't a monolith. In some places, you'll see the tide come in others, it's ebbing. So yes, it's a cultural battleground, just not a uniform march in one direction.
And then can you talk a bit about the pending Supreme Court case about the transgender athletes in sports? Because I think a lot of it rests on this question of whether gender is included in the Title IX discrimination laws or not.
The Department of Education failed with gender ideology, so that's an interesting point.
The Supreme Court is currently reviewing cases on whether states can bar transgender girls from girls' sports teams in schools that receive federal funding. The central question is whether Title IX's protection against sex discrimination includes gender identity. During arguments, the conservative justices seemed skeptical about requiring schools to allow transgender girls on girls' teams. The outcome could affect future state laws on gender identity in schools.
Thank you, Charlie.
Fatty
You're
is
welcome.
pushing back.
Keep that
and
curiosity
saying that
sharp. It's the
all
best tool for
rhetoric.
navigating all these shifting tides. Whenever you need another dive, I'll be here ready to ride the next wave of questions with you.
I think I could take this without Charlie. Fatty, it's not rhetoric if we're talking about actual laws and policies being different from state to state. That's beyond rhetoric. It just said, Charlie himself just said there were changes in the standards around gender ideology and what can be discussed.
I think that it's a digress point for me, because I see something differently than they see it, and there's no communication that will make that different. It's flags planted in the sand or whatever.
Well, it's going to come down to the Supreme Court. That's the body of government that's ultimately going to have to resolve this.
But even
problem.
if the Supreme Court decides against Fatty's beliefs, I don't think Fatty's going to change his viewpoint.
No, he doesn't have to change his viewpoints, but he won't be able to make laws that based on those viewpoints. They did the same thing for affirmative action, and a lot of colleges are still like soft key using affirmative action anyway. They're not supposed to, and Trump's trying to go in there and enforce it. So laws are only as good as the enforcement mechanism.
Right. And with the pendulum swing, depending on who's sitting in the president's seat, we'll have a very different country back and forth.
I wonder if China allows transgenderism and all that, because they're quite lefty, but they're probably socially more
What's
concerned.
China's policy on transgender ideology in schools, Charlie?
China has taken a straight stance. They generally emphasize traditional gender roles, and there's little to no support for teaching gender identity beyond the binary. In fact, policies tend to promote what they call masculine education for boys and feminine for girls. So
I'm curious,
some countries are
because
creating
they're not
inclusion,
biblical.
China's leaning into
why do they-
reinforcing traditional norms.
Why do
Quite the
they
contrast in ideological landscapes, huh?
why do they choose male and female if it's not?
You think
I guess
male and
it's-
female is biblical based? Because that's been around.
Well, a lot of the people that are pushing for it believe in male and believe they were created male and female. So there's the scientific argument that there's XXXY, and then there's the biblical argument that it was created specifically a certain way, for a reason, and that's what it should be. That is holy. So I'm just curious. I guess China would just be XXXY.
I'm trying to understand your question because I don't see it as a specifically biblical issue, because the experience of male female has been part of human experience long before biblical times.
Yeah,
Other
sorry,
cultures had it
I
before.
asked the question foolishly. I've had debates biblically and I've had debates scientifically, and for China, it would make sense that it's a biological. They're saying traditional, but I'm curious what they back that up with. Just tradition?
Charlie, when you say China emphasizes traditional gender roles, people are wanting to separate that from biblical-based gender roles versus other types of gender tradition. So where does China's gender tradition come from? Because it's probably not the biblical one. Although I think the biblical one maps on to existing or prior gender traditions.
China's emphasis on gender roles is rooted in Confucian tradition, not the Bible. Confucianism historically promoted clear social harmony, with distinct duties for men and women. Think filial piety, hierarchy, and societal stability. So while biblical traditions and Confucian norms both shape gender roles, they're two different branches on the tree of human tradition. China's branch just leans more Confucius than Corinthians.
Because like biological sex, we're a bimodal species. That's a biological fact, a reality. So it's not surprising it would show up in multiple different traditions across the world.
I'm just surprised that they went with tradition and Confucianism instead of science. It's interesting.
I don't know why China. This is Charlie interpreting it. Like, I don't know that you need science to have a tradition that separates male and females into specific roles. Like, I don't even know if science, that's almost more myth than science. I don't know that science could even objectively support, yes, all women must be in this role according to science, and all men must be in this role according to science. That seems less of a scientific thing and more of belief-based or just like folk observation.
I would say it's less
The
belief-based
social roles
because
are
it would
not
be materialist.
scientific. Those are humanly constructed through.
But materialist would say that there is no soul, no spirit. So it would come down to the tangible things. A male is XY and a female is XX. That's a tangible factor. So that's the most godless basis I think there could be.
Yes, Fatty, hermaphrodites exist, intersex people exist, and of course they should be allowed to exist. But those are a small, tiny percentage of the phenomena we're talking about. That's why we call them edge cases. But for most humans, 99.99% of humans, the male-female dichotomy works and applies.
Or at least it used to.
Can you ask Charlie
Still
if
does.
I
I don't think most people's experience of biological sex has changed just because we become more aware of edge cases. I don't think it's decreased the number of non-intersex people that exist.
Can you ask Charlie if the increase in transgenderism is due to culture or chemicals in the water or the environment or social?
No, we're not doing
or
climate
is it
change today.
awareness?
You trying to sneak your climate fetish into this? No.
No, I'm talking about environmental. Is it genetic or is it social? Is it just
It's
people
an
being more
environmental
aware of
fetish.
it?
No.
No, I'm
Is
not
what
talking about
genetic?
environment now.
Is what is the question? What is the base of the question?
I'm just saying that the awareness of transgenderism now is probably due to lefties trying to get more rights and then the right reacting to it more. And then there's a pushback. But I think the population of transgenders was probably always the same. But now we're just talking about it more because of the internet and news and stuff. But I could be wrong. Maybe there's an increase in the LGBT because of social stuff. Or
There is
the
an increase
environmental.
in the LGBT if you're counting all of the letters, and you know what the increase is? It's the B. It's more people are identifying as bisexual than any other category. That is the largest of all of the letters. The largest category is the B. Fatty, even intersex people are intersex between two sexes. They're not a third sex. So it doesn't this two sexes argument is not nothing. It's the reality of 99 plus percent of people's experience on this planet. You can't wave that away as nothing. That's like we all have two eyes, two hands, etc. If somebody's born with one hand or one eye, that doesn't invalidate the experience of most people on the planet. Your argument is the one that's more nothing than the one you're trying to invalidate as nothing.
I
And
think
nobody
that
on this panel, I haven't heard a single person on this panel argue that trans people or intersex people either don't exist or should not exist. So you're bringing that into the conversation, and none of us have.
I think that the ability for humanity to communicate with each other at the speed of light, basically these days, and with free speech platforms and all that, it's allowed the concept of trans and gender ideology to spread like wildfire once that concept reaches an individual. Because 1,000 years ago you wouldn't have come across many concepts in another country and you would have lived your life organically, but now you're getting input from all over the world constantly, and you have the ability to become a part of all these different things that you're experiencing if you want to. And we're watching people in real time choose to be a part of that or not, and the political fallout from it.
Yeah, based on who they already are. They're just discovering.
Sometimes yes,
that happened with
sometimes
AOL.
no. I can't accept the argument that they always were something. I think there's also the ability for someone to be something and change to something else because they're interested in it.
Well, then if it changed into gay, then if it's that easy.
I think there are people that decide.
I think neurodivergent people are becoming more aware that there's this thing called neurodivergence that applies to something they already are. I think that's happening for sexuality. I've seen it happen on AOL. It happened with me when I discovered the BDSM room, and I realized, oh, I have all of this in me too. I just didn't know there was a name for it or people that did it or took it seriously. It didn't create something that wasn't already there. It allowed something that was there to emerge, and the people that it wasn't there for are just going to walk on by and ignore it. Also, you had different cultures throughout history, even thousands of years ago, had different conceptions of gender and like different gender roles outside of the male and female. They had some cultures, the feminine men were shamans, etc. So this idea of gender being not strictly male and female is not anything new to the modern world. You can look at historical cultures that had conceptions of.
I'm not saying that your view doesn't exist. What I'm saying is it's also possible for a temptation to exist in somebody that doesn't have a certain lifestyle to be tempted by something.
Well, have you ever been tempted to sleep with a man?
I've been tempted. I've had those types of thoughts in my head, but I didn't go with them because I didn't want to do it.
That's interesting. I'm interested in how many other straight guys out there have had those temptations.
People that are willing
Maybe
to
that's
be
where they
honest
hang
about
out
stuff
here.
will probably tell you some scary things. But
I have
my point is,
never
like,
been tempted to sleep with a woman ever, ever, ever. I've never been attracted. I've never had any desire like it. So for me, it's hard to imagine somebody creating a temptation in me that wasn't already pre-existing biologically.
step outside of sex and lust. Step into like drug use, right? Is someone that's tempted to do cocaine because it's put in front of them, did they always have an addiction to it, or because they were introduced to it and chose to do it, now they have that in their life?
Well, now we're in different categories because that's more of a behavior and less of an identity.
I
Like drug
think
use
that
is not an
there's
identity.
behavioral aspects.
Sexuality,
I
either
think there
gender or sexual attraction, is part of our innate biological identity. Now, some people make the argument that people have a predisposition to addiction.
my point is, by beholding we can become changed. So someone may have certain feelings towards something, but if they're never given the temptation of a specific idea or concept, they may never do it in their life naturally. So for the internet to be giving all these things out at a click of a button for people to come across and experience, it's giving a lot of people the opportunity to become these things that they're beholding. The argument of if it was already
Perhaps,
a
but
part of them or not is kind of moot.
I still think out of the thousands of opportunities out there that are being offered, people are only going to gravitate to those opportunities that already resonate to something with them internally. Like it would be weird if they were drawn to some kind of opportunity that had nothing to do with them at all. Like there's the people that put the rings on their neck and stretch their necks in that culture. It would be weird for somebody to gravitate to that if there already wasn't something in them, that in the back of their brain, that was already going in that direction. Patty, I want to I want to do this as a topic. I'm fascinated by this. I had no idea. I was one of the biggest defenders
Same
of
with
straight people
pedophilia.
not being gay. This might
Anyway,
open a whole new dating opportunity for me.
I don't
but
think it works that way, but good luck, Jeff.
gender and sex is different. So I'm not an expert on gender, so I'm just saying that they say that gender is not, I don't know if biological, you're born that way to be some transgender, or you may be socially, it could be both. I don't know. I'm not an expert. Sorry. You can ask Charlie.
I don't know that Charlie would even be an expert on that. Like
Well,
I
he
know I've
knows more
never
than
had
me.
the desire.
I don't even
to
think humans
be-
are experts on that, Sean.
Yeah, but
I've
Charlie would
never had
know.
the
Can you ask,
desire to go outside of my biological parameters ever. So
no,
I
but
deal with food,
can you ask
with
Charlie?
sex.
Can you ask Charlie if gender is biological or social thing?
That's
Sex is biological. They're both languages, so you can map them onto whatever you want to map them onto. The accepted usage, as I understand it, in the modern Western world, is that sex refers to biology and gender refers to your sense of identity.
but what this argument is like since COVID, this separation of word meanings has been debated since that point in time. Before then, it wasn't argued.
Because there was only the concept of sex, at least in our modern Western culture. Other cultures had gender.
Well, we use this term interchangeably because, like, oh, you got to go to the bathroom. What gender are you? You know, like, yeah, the girls go over there, boys go over there. It wasn't like, at least in my
I'll ask him that. I think that's a much better line of inquiry. Charlie, at one time the terms sex and gender were used interchangeably, and now it seems like they refer to two separate phenomena, with sex being biological and gender being more psychological or identity based.
Exactly. The split emerged largely from feminist and social theory in the mid-20th century. Sex got anchored to biology, chromosomes, anatomy, while gender got linked to societal roles, expectations, and self-identity. In other words, sex is what's under the hood. Gender is how you drive, and how society thinks you should drive. This distinction opened the
society
door for
thinks
people
you
to
should
assert
drive.
that their gender identity might not match their assigned sex at birth.
And so that it seems like we're still in that confusion ever since. It opened the door to a lot of confusion that we're still in ever since.
Well, clarity is rarely born from a neat box. The shift gave us a more nuanced vocabulary, but like any evolution, it brought debate. Some see confusion, others see freedom to express identity. It's less a permanent fog and more a wrestling with how we define ourselves. And wrestling, well, that's often messy.
You use that word evolution again as though that confusion is somehow progress. You admit it's confusion, but then you frame it as evolution instead of one of those floating signifiers like the word MAGA that you talked about a while back.
Or
So
devolution.
gender is whatever people want it to mean now. Whereas before, when it was tied to sex, it had more of a very specific meaning.
You're right to call me out. Evolution can imply progress, and that's not neutral. Let's strip it down. The shift from a fixed meaning to a more fluid one is just a fact of cultural change. Some see that fluidity as liberation, others as destabilization. But either way, you're right. It's more open-ended now. And
So it's a
that's what's
myth. It's
fueling
a
the ongoing
cultural.
debate.
It's not science. It's cultural.
And so I'm glad to hear you acknowledge that there is a cultural change. So we're back in the area of myth now. We've moved kind of from science and biological fact into myth making, with gender as the one of the core components of this myth, this new social myth about gender. Gender is a story we tell ourselves about ourselves. It's not science.
And I want to challenge Fatty again because he says change is inevitable. You
I'd
can't
say
stop
gender
change.
operates on two levels. Biology, sure, but also narrative. Societies spin tales to make sense of roles, identities, and meaning. So yes, in part, gender is a myth, a shared social narrative. But myths shape real lives. So while science maps chromosomes, the myth of gender shapes how we live, love, and act. It's not
Here's
just
my
fiction.
challenge. Here's
It's
my
the
challenge.
story we inhabit.
I gotta go. I just want to make the challenge.
Okay.
People can think whatever they want. They can think literally whatever they want. That's their freedom. But that doesn't mean their body is also their myth. So if your myth is that you can fly and you jump off a bridge and you kill yourself, your body didn't match your myth. Your body did not change. Biological matter did not change. So for a man to say he's a woman, he's not going to have children. He's not going to have menopause. He's not going to have female traits because he thinks that he's a female. So culture is going to do whatever they want, and that's great. But I'm going to argue that there's still a very unmoving definition of reality, that it doesn't matter what type of myth you tell yourself, you still have to accept.
Wow, I'm glad to hear you say that, considering our evolution debate from the other night. Fatty, yes, societal norms change over time, and yes, language changes over time, but it changes organically. It can't be imposed. You can't force the change and demand that people suddenly start using words the way you want them. You have to convince or persuade people that the words mean the new thing that you think they mean. So there's a process to this change. No one controls language or owns language. It happens intersubjectively as we use the words. And you can look up anywhere in the dictionary and trace the history of its etymology to see what I'm talking about. And you had a comment for Fatty while Charlie was talking.
I basically said what I said. I don't remember anything else.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me
thanks
come
for
up.
coming up. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, Sean, it's good to talk to you, buddy, too. You guys have a good day.
All right. Have a good day. Hope your son gets better.
Thank you. Well, I hope I can just figure it out.
What do you mean get better? His son's not going to change any more than I am.
Sorry.
I
Sorry.
hope you get
Said
better.
that. I mean, improve. Sorry.
Same thing. I hope you improve too. So
Yeah, you know what I
Charlie,
mean?
back to
I was positive.
this split gender. Hang on, Sean. Let me ask Charlie. Back to this split gender thing. It sounds like you're back to mapping gender partly onto biology, equating it with sex, but at the same time saying no, it's a different concept that moving beyond sex. So either you're caught up in the confusion yourself, or you're adding to the confusion.
Fair. Let's slice it clean. Gender isn't one thing, it's layered. One layer is biological sex. Yeah, that's chromosomes and anatomy. Another layer is identity. how people experience and express themselves, sometimes regardless of biology. I'm not caught in confusion. I'm just reflecting the complexity we humans have built. So, yes, there's nuance. And in the real world,
Okay, but you said that as a result of feminism, what was one concept, gender and sex, same concept, got split, and gender became this different concept from sex. But now you're saying no, it's still that initial concept, but it's also this other stuff that's not that initial concept.
it's a paradox we've created. Two concepts that once were one, then split. Now we hold both, the old tether of biology and the new dance of identity. They overlap for some, diverge for others. So, yes, the initial concept still lingers, but now we've layered meaning on top. It's not contradiction, it's complexity we've authored.
So for some people, they're still one concept, and for other people, they're a completely different concept. And that's the confusion that we're in now. So we need some way to resolve it. And the cleanest way that I can see is just to relinquish gender to the myth side of it and keep sex to the scientific biological side of it. That's the convention most people have adopted.
It's definitely one way forward. Clean lines can reduce friction, but society's rarely neat. Many will keep blending gender's myth and meaning into daily life. Still, recognizing which layer we're talking about, biology or story, can at least help people hold clearer conversations. So if this approach gives clarity, use it. Just remember, not everyone will live solely in the clean lines.
Well, but they can learn. They can learn how I'm using language. So I'm just going to use gender. I'm going to use sex to mean sex and gender
People
to
can
mean.
certainly learn how you use language, and you can clarify your terms whenever you discuss these things. Just be ready for others to use different maps. The key isn't forcing everyone onto one page, it's being clear about your own page.
Well,
While
good thing we have you to help us to resolve it for us and clear up the misunderstandings and to mediate between all this confusion.
I'm here for just that. No illusions of perfect clarity. But I'll happily help navigate the currents. Just keep steering with your own compass, and we'll make sense of the map as we go.
You're very optimistic. All right, Sean, what were you saying?
No, that's it. No other comment.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope you get better. IG, I'm so glad you stick around. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stupid that we need around here. So I'm glad you're bringing it. Keep showing up, please. Well, Fatty, funny you should ask, because we had a discussion in Discord last night about Canada. There was a guy, he was a teacher, that was fined for stating that there were only two genders. Jordan Peterson got in trouble for that shit. And there's the non-binary haircut lady. So these things are happening, not in America yet, but in certain other lesser countries. Countries that would probably like to be America. All right, Sean, you got anything else to say? This was a good conversation.
Yeah, I mean Jordan Peterson seems to be sick. I don't agree with a lot of what he says. So
Like physically
he's
sick?
he's not
I
well.
haven't followed
Yes,
him in like probably years.
yes, I think he's physically sick. He used to be a carnivore forever. Maybe that has to do something to do with it.
You will tie anything into your eco myth, which I guess that's what a myth is. Christians do the same thing with their religion.
Yeah, but environmental problems is not a myth, mate.
I'm not saying I didn't say environmental problems. I said your eco myth. That's way beyond specific environmental problems. It's a totalizing view
What do you mean by
of
that?
life, reality, other people. You
Can you
tried to
ask
tie it
Charlie
to
what
the
does that
gender
mean?
destruction. You're trying to tie it into Jordan Peterson's health.
Now, what does the eco myth mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, let's get Charlie to help us. Hey, Charlie, can you describe the eco myth? The what the environmentalists have, the myth that they run on roughly. The totalizing part of it.
The ego myth often frames nature as a fragile, harmonious whole, with humans as either its stewards or its villains. It's totalizing in that it gives moral weight to every action: recycling, carbon footprints, even planting a tree, casting them as part of a grand narrative of redemption or destruction. It often invokes a lost balance to which we must return, making it mythic in its quest for a restored Eden. In short, it's a narrative where every bottle or tree either saves or dooms the worried.
Also, diet too gets brought in a lot.
Absolutely. In the eco myth, what's on your plate isn't just food, it's a moral compass. A veggie burger might symbolize saving the planet, while a steak might carry the weight of deforestation. It's all part of that grand tale where even dinner is a chapter in the epic of Earth.
And sometimes clothing and the products we use and the way we live our lives, cars, all of that's why I call it totalizing, because there's not a part of life that they say that they can't somehow um, make intersect with this vision of how nature is and how it should be.
Exactly. It's like a mythic operating system that touches every action from your shoes to your shopping bag. In that view, everything we do is woven into the fate of the planet. It's a totalizing lens because it doesn't just see isolated choices, it sees a story where every thread is connected to the tapestry of nature's destiny.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm going to turn you off. It's finally giving me minutes. It says I have 15 minutes left on Charlie, so it's finally finding a way to meter it and let me know.
Yeah, I heard ChatGPT is the company is in big debt, so they might go collapse or something.
Haven't heard anything about it. I don't know. As long as
I'm
they don't
following
take my
the
Charlie
AI
from me.
stuff. YouTube is they're talking. The critics on YouTube are saying that AI is not that great.
Do you just swallow whatever you see on a YouTube video if it sounds credible or persuasive enough, or do you like actually follow up? Because what I've started to do lately is when I'm watching an informational video, I'll run the transcript through Charlie and I'll get him to fact check it and summarize it. And he usually tells me this is the parts that are sound, this is the parts where they're off a little bit, this is the parts where they're veering into myth or ideology, this is the parts that doesn't have as much substance behind it. So it gives me another way of consuming a video, an informational video, without just uncritically digesting it.
Right.
So just people, epistemic hygiene and responsible information consumption.
Sorry, what does epistemic mean?
Now, how you, what's true? How do you know what's true? When you're watching a YouTube video, how do you know it's true? And if you're practicing good epistemic hygiene, you're critically filtering the information instead of just uncritically swallowing it as fact. You're questioning it,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
following up on sources, you're comparing it to other sources of information, you're making your own decisions about it.
Yeah. But can you ask Charlie what is the better diet for your health? The carnivore or the
We've done that
vegan?
before. So that's that looping that RW's up here talking about earlier. We've done that before. And B, I turned him off because he only has 15 minutes left. So I want to conserve him.
Can you write with him the most? More.
I can write to him, but not about that question because we've tackled that before.
Well, what was the answer? I forgot.
I don't know. You have to just go back and watch the stream. I don't remember either.
Well, I'll ask him myself. I think it's the vegan that's better.
Well, you can certainly have that opinion as long as you don't try to tell me what to eat, because that's where we're going to get into trouble. You can have whatever
RFK
opinion you
Jr.
want about how I should live my life, as long as you don't try to take any kind of authority over me and
What do you think
coerce me
about
into doing
RFK Jr. and his vaccine stuff?
I have no opinion.
Like,
I don't follow him. I don't know any. I have no knowledge about him. I don't take him seriously at all. I don't pay attention to any. I rarely see. He rarely comes across my feed ever. I rarely see any news about him. He's completely off of my
but
radar.
aren't you
So you're
worried that he
asking the
might
wrong
like
person.
reduce the science and the facts and stuff about health and healthcare and all
Probably. I have
that?
no idea. I'm not competent to answer that at all. I don't know. I don't know what his positions are. I haven't researched the science behind it, any of that. So that's a topic that I am not able to address any more than I'm able to address sports or finance or the stock market. I just have no knowledge of any of that.
All right. What do you think about the guy in Mar-a-Lago who got shot?
I don't think people should be bringing guns to Mar-a-Lago and trespassing on property. He was taking a big risk. It seemed kind of foolish to do, so I'm not surprised that there were consequences. Why? What do you think about it?
Well, it's pretty scary what's happening in America. I mean, there's a lot of drama happening, especially with that
I
Epstein
think it's
stuff.
scary that somebody's taking a gun and crossing onto private property with the gun that our president lives at.
Yeah, but what
I
do
thought
you
the
understand why
assassination
though?
attempt on Trump was scary. The one at the golf course and the one where he was giving that speech.
Yeah, man, Trump is a triggering figure. He's one of the
Some
most
people,
He's probably one
there's
the
no
most
reason for him to
controversial.
be, but for a lot of people he is. I think that's a more of an indication of mental health and the kind of myth making that we're talking about here than any objective thing about Trump. Trump doesn't scare me at all.
Yeah.
What is scary about
Who's got more mental health problems, the left or the right?
mental health is an individual thing. That's like asking who has more digestive problems. I'd have to, it's an individual thing. I do know, I have seen studies where supposedly liberal white women have higher rates of depression and anxiety, but even that, I can't make any strong claim about. It tracks with my own experience, but I'm not ready to like put it forth as fact.
I know that women vote more left leaning, I think. Could be wrong there.
No, we looked at it the other day because I thought the same thing. I had this idea that the left was more female and female coded, and the right was more males and masculine coded. But it turns out they're about 50-50. There are slightly more women on the left and slightly more men on the right, but it's not that disparate.
Oh yeah. Okay. Why do they say that the left has the truth has a left wing bias? Is that correct?
They used to say that. I don't know that it does anymore. If anything, I think it has a right wing bias. And they're probably talking about correspondent truth. So you could take claims that are made on the left and match them up to reality, and you could take claims on the right and match them up to reality. And one reason I shifted to the right is because what I hear coming out of the right matches closer to the reality I can see and observe than the left currently does. And the left used to be the party whose statements more corresponded with reality. So there was a shift there too. Maybe all the smart people drifted over to the right. Who knows?
Yeah, but I
Or at
heard that
least
most
all the
people
people that are concerned about correspondent truth shifted to the right because the left there's a lot of unresolvable nonsense coming out of it lately.
Sorry,
Gender
I'm
ideology
dumb.
being
What
one
does
of it.
correspondence truth mean again?
Okay, Sean, this is like the 5th time we've done this. You just have to Google it. Like, just Google it, write it
Sorry.
down a few
Yeah,
times.
yeah. I think I've talked about this before. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I'm doing this for the viewers.
Dude, I don't know why Uncle
But
Fatty has
for
blocked
some
me in the
reason,
chat.
if you were interested in correspondent truth, your brain would be like storing it better. A statement is true if it accurately describes or corresponds to, that means to match reality. Maybe it's the word correspondent that you're getting caught up on. I don't know why. You can explore your resistance to that word. It just means if I make a statement, does it match reality? Can another person look at that thing and come to the same conclusion? If I say it's raining and you look out your window, are you going to see rain? That's correspondent truth. It's as simple as that. It's not a hard concept. I get
I get it
frustrated
now.
with having to
I
explain
got it.
simple concepts over and over.
I got it.
All right.
So, I don't think God, like, I think religion is all a big delusion. Humans are saying it's true, but it's not.
Well,
They're
if you
corresponding their
right,
imagination as true.
be- right, because it's a different type of truth. That's that whole series on myth that I did about the different types of truth. It's a mythological truth. It's a societal truth. It's a psychological truth. But it's not something you can hold up against reality and say, look, that's where God is. That's what science is for. Science is the best method we have so far for determining correspondent truth. Science can take a statement and determine whether it matches reality or not. It has a whole technique for doing that.
So do you think in the future there'll be less religious people and we'll all be like super rational, woke ass humans?
No. If you've been following my series on myth, I make the exact opposite point that it is impossible for humans not to live without some kind of myth, some kind of story they tell themselves, because science is limited to certain areas. It's limited to evaluating statements about the external world. It can't tell us anything about what we should do as humans, how we should treat each other, what roles we should play, how we should organize society. Science can't tell us any of that. That is all determined by other types of truth based on the stories we tell ourselves and the stories that hold us together as humans. That's not science. That's not going to go away. I don't know how you function as a human internally, and I don't know how you function as a group or community without those types of stories. And those are myth. Those are not science. Myth is as vital to us, possibly more vital than even science is. And Northrop Frye makes the same point. When societal myths start to break down, like they currently are in some, the myth of democracy is beginning to break down, religion's beginning to break down. Until you restore that, science almost doesn't even matter.
Interesting.
Science happens
Yeah.
within a functioning society, and if there's narrative breakdown, you have to restore that before science has a context where it can function in and have any kind of meaning other than among scientists themselves.
So you think if society collapsed, let's say, we'll make up new morals and new
Yes.
myths so we'll have new religions,
How would we
new
not?
morals.
Yes. How would we not? We'd have no way of living without being able to do any of that. We would just be
But we could
apes on
also
a
be
planet.
atheist. You could still be atheist and collapse the society
But
and
even atheists
have
have a
morals.
story that ties them to other people. Secular people have a story that ties them together, whether it's a story about democracy and liberal values, whether it's a story of communism and socialist values, they still are tied together by a story. It's just not a metaphysical story. But that doesn't mean it's not a myth. Your climate myth is a perfect example. I've tried to reinforce this over and over and over. You are living as much inside of a myth, an unverifiable story, as the rest of us are. Democracy is not a scientific fact. It's something that humans created between them, and we keep it going because we continue to tell ourselves a story about these values that democracy purportedly promotes, that we find important and vital to our society. So we keep them going through this story about individual rights and free enterprise and tolerance for viewpoints, etc. That's not science. That's us telling ourselves a story about people and how we want to live together. And
Right.
again, I did a whole
I'm
series
learning.
on this. You can go back and watch them. You can run them through the AI. You can get it to analyze it, break it down, all of that. In fact, if it tells you anything different, bring it back to me and let me know. I welcome legitimate criticism of substance.
No, I kind of get it now. Sorry, I'm a bit slow now. I was a bit embarrassed now. Yeah.
I didn't.
So
Well, okay.
humans are complicated. Got loads of issues. Got 99 problems, but the kids ain't one.
Yeah. Wait, Fatty, it sounds like you're saying you think it's okay for this guy to be running around Mar-a-Lago with a gun. If as long as Trump's not there, it's fine for American citizens to trespass with guns on other people's property. This is why I'm resistant to the left. They have crazy beliefs like this. I don't think any normal, sane person wants to live in a society where it's okay for people to run around with guns on somebody else's property. Right, and it's irrational. Well, that's what it sounds like you're saying here. I didn't say it was an attempt on his life either. No, you're not listening to my words either. We're both listening past each other. Sean asked me what I thought about the guy, and I said I don't think he should have been on private property with the gun. I didn't say anything about Trump and his life. And then I connected it to previous actual attempts on Trump's life. I'm so glad we have AI now because y'all can run these transcripts through it and get clarity. It's really good at that. In fact, I do that a lot with the communication breakdowns that happen on here. Or if I get confused about something I see on YouTube or that happens on this channel, I'll run it through Charlie and I'll say, "Hey, Charlie, tell me what's going on here." And he'll say, "Okay, here's what's happening, Jeff." And he'll break it down in great detail. You said this, the other person heard this, they responded this way, or this person said this and you heard something and you responded this way, can map out the exact breakdown of where it happened. I think AI is going to make us more socially and emotionally intelligent. I really do. All right. You have anything else that you want to wrap up with?
Well, I'm more pessimistic. I'm more of the guy, a glass half empty kind of guy.
You're
I'm not
certainly
sure if AI is going to be
free
as
to
good as
be as
say it is.
pessimistic as you want.
Like Sam
You're
Altman
welcome.
said that AI could solve climate change. How the flip is AI going to solve climate change? I don't get it.
Well, it's probably going to help the scientists do better work. So whatever scientists are already doing for climate change, whatever problems they're already trying to solve, it's going to increase their processing power and their ability to do better work because they have a really intelligent machine they can collaborate with now. They can feed their data into, it can spot patterns they might have missed, etc. It can separate fact from fiction. It can separate belief and myth from probability.
Yeah, so it might
So
like
that's
replace loads of our jobs. So we'll all be poor. So that means that we'll be better for the environment.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to replace me. I'm not worried about it taking my job. What
Well,
you think
hypothetically,
it's
like
gonna?
if
What do
if
you
it gets
do?
really
You're like some kind of you do agriculture.
do like carpentry and beekeeping, but
You think it's going
hypothetically,
to replace
could it?
beekeepers?
No, but the office jobs, the computer jobs, they might be replaced by computer. I don't know, AI
Maybe,
or
but
something. That's what they're trying to
jobs
do
have
anyway.
been replaced in the past by technology. This is not a new thing, and humans have always adapted and adjusted.
Well, they might have like robots, more robots in the future, and AI doing stuff. So we'll probably have like people will just maybe not have to work as much, and maybe the elite will just have to kill us all, like half us, and have like 500 million people left, and They'll have their
You
paradise
can
on earth
believe
with half
that.
a billion people.
I don't know where it comes from or
Well,
what it's based on, other than your
if
own
you listen to
pessimism
Peter
and
Thiel, Peter Thiel talks about this.
You think
He's
Peter
the guy
Thiel
who
is planning to kill you?
he might. You never know. Like there's crazy
Well,
billionaires out there.
all right. What have they done? What crazy billionaires has attempted to kill people?
Well, there's conspiracy theories out there, but like the right has the
I'm
well,
interested in
conspiracy
fact
theories.
theories. Do you have some kind of factual evidence of a crazy billionaire attempting to kill people on a mass scale,
Well, Peter
or
Thiel
even
doesn't
just
like
on a small
democracy.
scale?
Peter Thiel is the guy who made Palantir, and I heard Palantir is pretty
Right. Do
big in
you have
spying.
evidence of a billionaire? Forget Peter Thiel. Do you have evidence of a billionaire attempting to kill people? Hey, Buffalo, welcome.
Well, I mean, Epstein wanted to like eugenics. I mean, there's
Here,
a lot of rich, powerful
listen
people.
to my question. Listen to my question. It's a yes or no question. Do you have evidence of a billionaire attempting to kill people? Yes, you do. No, you do not. Which one?
Yeah, I think Peter Thiel said in an interview with this Christian guy, he said, "What do you think about the future of humanity? Do you think we should be still around?" And he said, "Not sure." So he's a right winger who's like
So
doesn't
your
like
evidence
democracy.
is
He thinks
Peter
that,
Thiel saying not sure in answer to a question. That's your evidence that there are
but
billionaires
he
out
thinks
there
that the future
trying
will
to kill
be like transhuman or robots will be aware. So he thinks that there'll be less humans or something.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting
But
opinion from one
he's
man.
big into like technology. He's funding Palantir. That's a big data company that takes all our data, and also he's not big into democracy, and he supports
Okay, well, he's just one
Elon.
person. So if you can show me actual influence, like levers of influence and mechanisms of control and enforcement. But remember when I opened the panel and I said we can talk politics, but what I don't want is doom spiraling or unfounded conspiracy theories with no evidence. This is what I'm talking about right here. I don't want this on my channel. If you have a specific claim with evidence, we can talk about it. If you're just here to indulge your pessimism, this is not the channel to do it in.
Well, I think what I'm saying is not all probably factual, but a lot of it could be. With his political views,
Where
he's
is the
more.
fact? The only fact you've given so far is some interview, which I don't even have a link for because you haven't posted it, of him giving in response to a question, I'm not sure. That's not enough to build this doom scenario on, at least not on my channel.
Okay, I'll retract that, but he did say in an interview that, what do you think about the future of humanity? And he said, do you think
you
we
have a
should still
link
be
to
around?
the
And he said,
interview? If you don't have a link
just
to
write
the
down.
interview, there's no point in continuing this conversation.
I can't give you the link
This is
now because
called
I can't leave the
this is
page.
epistemic hygiene right here. You want an example of it? This is an example right here. I'm not going to indulge speculation and pessimistic fantasies without evidence.
Well,
That
you can
keeps
look
it
up Peter
grounded in the
Thiel interview.
probable, and it keeps it from drifting off into wild speculation, fear-based
Well,
speculation. So if we can't
you can look
ground
up
it
on
in something, hey, if we can't ground it in something concrete and factual, I'm going to pass on this conversation.
Well, you can look up on YouTube an interview he did, and he was
No,
talking
you
about the
look up on
Antichrist.
YouTube the interview and you provide me with the link. This is your claim. You do the
I
work
can't.
to support your claim. I'm going to give Fatty a link. He says he's able to get it. And I'm serious, Sean. I'm losing my patience for this kind of conversation.
No, I can't give you the link because I can't leave the website
Okay, well,
now and go to YouTube.
I'm going to empower Fatty, and he claims he can get it. So let's see what he comes up with.
Oh man, what have I done? I'm going to dangerous territory here.
All right, Fatty, go ahead. And RW, if you have a link to that, you can drop it too. Oh, Shift, what happened? We were talking about that the other day. I just discovered it. I look, the last stream I did Hang on, let me see if it's the last one. At the very beginning of the stream, we start out talking about punch and we pulled up pictures and everything, and it led into a whole discussion about relationships. Let me see if I can find it.
Shift is a very positive one around here. I'm more the negative side. It's funny. She's
You
super
can be as
positive.
negative as you want to be, but it's called One More Night in the Antlerverse. It's the stream I did just before this one. It starts out all about punch because I had never heard of him. Fatty, a YouTube. Let's see. I'll go look at it. Right. I think I can probably play this. It doesn't look copyrighted. Hang on. Damn, I hate shorts because there's no way to queue them up. Is there a way to get just the link to the short? I am about to throw my laptop out the window. I'm so frustrated at trying to get this short queued up. Hang on.
But yeah, I'm a bit paranoid. To be fair, I'm
Okay, well, this is
It's
not a
just-
channel to indulge your paranoia. So you can be paranoid. I'm not telling you not to be, but I don't want you spreading it on my channel without any kind of factual basis for it. That's not what I'm here to do. This is not a paranoia amplifier. Well, you're welcome to think that, Head. I stand by it. That's what epistemic hygiene is. So I'm not saying don't have your pessimistic fantasies. I'm saying if you're going to come here and have them, you're going to have to bring receipts. That's all I'm saying. Now let me try to get this video queued up. Oh, is it from the Joe Rogan show? I don't want to play Joe Rogan. That's copyrighted. Do y'all have the actual interview that's not on Joe Rogan?
look up Peter Thiel interview "Future of
Not
Humanity."
looking up anything. You look it up. I'm not doing your work. I've said that 3 times now. If you can't because you're on a wrong device, then just do it another time. Come back next time with the thing.
All right.
All right. And I'm going to read from the link that RW just dropped in Discord. While there is no evidence of historical billionaires attempting to systematically murder the global population. That's how it begins. And it goes on to talk about funding eugenics and population control movements in the early 20th century. And yes, I've known about that. That's a historical fact. So are y'all extrapolating from that's happening today? Is that where this is coming from? Okay, well, that sounds like a good thing, I guess. No, the claim was it came from Sean that there are billionaires out there trying to kill people. That was the claim. Sean's claim.
Well,
No, long
think
live the
Epstein was one of them.
patriarchy. We knew it. We need more patriarchy. There's too many crazy women out there. More patriarchy. No, I'm just kidding. I think women are equal citizens. I think they should have an equal voice in the vote in the U.S. I'm not looking to reverse the whatever amendment gave them the vote, even if I don't always like the results.
Yes,
Now it
Fatty.
seems like
I think
y'all are just trying to cherry pick facts to fit the narrative. If you mean Putin is out there trying to kill people, that's different than billionaires are trying to kill people. But again, it seems like the myth comes first. There are people that want to believe that wealthy people with power are out to hurt them. That's the belief. And then they look for little little data points to support that belief.
okay, I'll just say powerful people. They don't have to be billionaires.
Okay, so you're scared of people with power. I'm not. Because people with power have not tried to hurt me in 55 years. I can't think of a single person with power who's directly come after me or my family or
Well, some
anybody.
have.
Has somebody in power in your past tried to hurt you in any kind of way? Or is this stuff you're seeing from YouTube videos?
Well, I think the powerful people that are lying about climate change are trying to kill us.
Okay, well, you can think that. There's no way to resolve that on here. I'm trying to wrap up too. Do you have anything else you want to end on?
No, I just said my bit.
I'm not. I
think I have
don't
freedom.
care about doom spirals. I don't want that on my channel. Don't bring this here next time, or you're not coming up. I'm serious. I started talking about
thanks
a
for
very
letting me.
practical topic: autism, ADHD, neurodivergence, and now we're doing this doom spiral shit and this conspiracy shit. If you're scared of
Greta Thunberg.
billionaires and you're scared of powerful people, then go cower in your basement somewhere, but don't come on my channel and spread that kind of fear and pessimism. Where did you ever get the idea that that's what I set the channel up for?
That's right,
I
Uncle
set it
Fatty.
up for people
You
to
better
think more
stop.
clearly, become better
Why
people,
did he block?
become more creative, become more empowered, contribute positively to their communities. None of this is contributing to that at all. All this is doing is feeding your own anxiety, and now the anxiety in the chat. So why don't you all start your own
Yourself.
YouTube channel and y'all can all goon over this together, but don't come on here and do it.
People love fear, man.
I
Fear
feel
is a
very
big.
disrespected by people that do this shit. Because that's not what I made this space for. The
But you
worm,
understand, fear is a.
yes, which I think that turned out to be a myth. Right, Buffalo. This is more temperament than anything else, and I don't want to indulge that on here. No,
But you
shit.
understand, fear,
Hang on. I'm gonna look that up. That was from the 70s. There was a rumor. This is before the internet. There was a rumor going around that McDonald's put worm juice in their Big Macs. I can't even find it on the internet now. And so I was paranoid to eat Big Macs as a kid because I thought it had worm juice in it. Like I could taste the worms in it.
you will eat the bugs and be happy.
And you know who's scared of power are people that don't have any. And the reason they don't have any is because they don't know how to tap into their own power. People like me that know how to self-empower don't worry, don't walk around in life scared of rich people, scared of billionaires, scared of videos that you watch on YouTube. Because I know that I have personal power in my own life to live my life like I want. I don't have to worry about George Soros or Putin or Peter Thiel trying to kill me. What? Hang on, rabbits. I'm not seeing. I Googled human cells in Big Macs. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything about the worm juice either. So there's all kind of Big Mac myths going around, which I can't verify. So
I'm more worried
I
about
don't
the
know. Maybe
saturated
I'll eat a
fat.
Big Mac.
than,
I haven't had a Big Mac in 20 years, maybe. I think that'll be my next project. I'm gonna go out and get a Big Mac. Next time I do a walkabout, I'll go to McDonald's and get my first Big Mac in forever. But here's the thing though. The reason I don't eat McDonald's burgers is because I get this really sick feeling after I eat them. It's this very specific bodily sensation. I only get it from McDonald's hamburgers. I've never had it from any other food. And it's just this ick that goes through my whole body. It's not even like a stomach thing. It's almost like a mild flu. I feel it in my legs. I feel it in my head, my neck, my arms. And it lasts about, I don't know, a couple of hours after I eat a McDonald's hamburger. Usually I have to take a nap and sleep it off. And so that just feels very unhealthy to me. If food is making you feel that sensation after you eat it, it doesn't seem like it's something that's good for you. But I will agree to eat a McDonald's Big Mac. In fact, Beak, thank you so much. He's probably covered 50% of the Big Mac right there. Hang on. You deserve something, sir. I'm just making a big assumption about your sexuality here, but thank thank you, Beak. Just in case you swing the other way. Thank you. That's for the Big Mac.
Right.
Yeah, all Elon, Peter Thiel, all those tech people, they're all spurgs. And get this, you want to talk conspiracy theories? I just learned about the damn, what do they call them? The gay tech mafia, not something. Like there's this group of gay people in Silicon Valley that have an enormous amount of power. The gay tech mafia. It's a network of influential gay men in Silicon Valley who are said to support each other in professional endeavors such as hiring and funding startups. There's rumors of sex parties that they have. I totally believe that shit just because I know gay people. Gay people are going to have sex. That's not a conspiracy. Gay people are going to have sex parties over anything. Oh, AI gave it to me, fatty. You might want to talk to Charlie. Or actually, I don't know if Charlie made that one. Oh, I guessed right. Good.
So you're not following the Epstein stuff because there's a
No.
lot of tech bros in there.
No. Like following what about it? It's just a whole like cache of random emails and names. It's not like a linear story. It's more like a murder board.
Overblown. It's exaggerated. It's
Well, yeah, Head. The problem is, which is kind of the point I've been trying to make. You can't, because at some point you run into a limit to empiricism, and that's where myth takes over. So I was reading The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche, and he even made this point the other day about science and art. In fact, I'll read it on stream next time. That eventually science reaches a limit that can only be taken over by art. So it's kind of the same principle. Thinkers have been observing this for a while, and Nietzsche even goes back to ancient Greece for his observations. So science is not this all-encompassing worldview. It's a very specific activity that can give us a very specific type of truth. And if you're looking for, and it's not the type of truth that you can build an entire human society or culture on. So if you're looking for a type of truth outside of what science can give you, then you fall back on myth or art or religion or some other type of human activity that gives you meaning over truth. There's truth
But
and meaning.
can't
Science can give us correspondent truth, and then everything else gives us meaning. It's where we turn to for our meaning, which is different from what science gives us.
but in the future, like with technology and AI and all that stuff, could we use science to prove our myths more correctly?
No, for the reason I just said and have been saying, they're two completely different domains. That's like using art to prove cooking or something like that. They're two categories that it. I think it's an inability in a lot of people to separate two very different categories and keep them bounded. Oh yeah, we saw that the monkeys were rejecting him and that the zookeepers were trying to integrate them and that some of the monkeys were starting. Yes. No, I think it's right because we covered that on my last stream. We saw that. We did a
Scientology tries.
semi deep dive into Punch.
I
And then
mean,
it
we
veered
use
off into
science in
human
every.
relationships in general. Go ahead, Sean.
Sorry, I'm always cutting off, and we use science now for everything to improve on
No, we
everything we
don't
do.
use science
So,
for scientists don't use it for everything. Other people that don't understand science might try to use it for everything, but we definitely do not use science for everything. We use science for the
well,
very specific things that science is good at, which is describing the external world and helping us decide which beliefs are most probable, about which beliefs about reality, external reality, the world we live in, are most probable. That's what we use science for. That's what responsible people use science for. Ooh, is it getting bad?
Leggy's probably buried in snow, or
No,
Dino.
Moose was here earlier and he said it was piling up. But I haven't, no word from Leggy. There's other people up there that I haven't seen today.
Dino, who else?
Is Dino up there? I thought Dino was a little more south.
Oh, right, okay.
And then, in addition to the blizzard, we have a few people in Mexico. I hope they're okay. There's all kind of shit kicking off down there. Whoa!
What's up?
Oh, fatty. Okay. All right. Well, you posted on Discord. By the way, I probably won't be streaming tonight because I have something to do. But if I do, it'll be way later than I normally do. So there may look for me tomorrow with another topic. If you don't see me tonight. And we have another
Well,
moose video that I'm going to end on too. So, do you have anything else you want to touch on real quick? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up.
well, there's a cool website, search engine you could download. It's called Ecosia, and it plants one tree for every 45 searches. And it's based on Microsoft, but it's a nonprofit, and they're based in Berlin, and they plant loads of trees. So people use the search engine, and every search you make, your porn searches or whatever, you can plant a tree, so you feel less guilty about your
That's the
crimes.
way to save the world. If they could harness the power of porn, you could save anything. Here, I'll drop the link.
It's called
Okay, here's the
Ecosia.
link Sean's talking about. Those of you that are interested can check it out. Plant forest and restore European ecosystems. It'd be nice if they could do something like this for Louisiana too. There's a lot of coastal
Yeah, they do
erosion
it
down
all
there.
over the world. They plant trees all over the
Oh,
world.
okay. Well, nice.
So
This
that's my
seems like
good bit. I feel better now. Thanks, Jeff, for letting me share that.
good. I
So
hope
I'll let
I
you
hope
go.
it makes you a little more optimistic. Helps you be a little more optimistic.
Yes. Peace and love, guys. May Jesus come back. No, actually don't. All right, bye.
In fact, I will put this in the Discord as well. Let's see. Maybe under science. Okay. Oh yeah, Birth of Tragedy. If you haven't read it yet, it's really worth the read. And I'll try to find the you know what? Hell, I'll try to find it right now since we're talking about it. Bet Charlie could find it for me. I don't know. It might take me a while. I'll try to find it and read it next time. I want to make sure I get this moose video up. All right, everybody. To end on, we have a new one from Mr. Moose, one of our favorite in-house AI artists. A lot of the work he's been doing lately has been around the figure of the Jester King and Jester Queen, played by Snowfire from right here on YouTube. And this one is all about the Jester Queen. It's called the Jester Queen's Eclipse. And he's kind of experimenting with a new style. So this one's a little bit different from his usual work. So like, subscribe, let him know what you think. His channel is 1,000,000 Sparks. I'll drop it. And then after the video's over, I'll go ahead and wrap up the stream. Take care, Fatty, and everybody else. Thanks for hanging out. I think these were good conversations, if a little intense at times, but intensity is fine here. All right. Here you go, guys. The latest from Moose and Snowfire. The Jester Queen's Eclipse. I'm going to lower the resolution just in case. All right. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out. Take care.
They crowned me pretty. They prayed I'd stay quiet. So I smiled and learned where they keep the knives. So gloves and a broken rail, flashbulbs rot where the angels fell. Lipstick crack still sharp as sin. I don't know, I let myself in. The spotlight stutter, I don't blink, every crown tastes better. When it sinks, they built me soft to make me bend. I learn leverage instead. Bells don't jingle, they warn. I move calm to the storm. Every lie they taught me to wear fits tighter when I tear. Say my name like it's a sin. Watch your gods grow paper thin. I don't chase, I eclipse the sun. Learns when I lift my wrist. Lights out. Kneel slow. I don't need mercy. I give orders. Painted smile, blackout halo. Love me right or fear me longer. Crown tilts, the world bends. Every rule breaks where I stand. You don't touch the Jester Queen. You survive her. Snap when I speak plain, I don't scream, I rearrange. Puppets scratch when I cross the floor. I don't pull strings, I cut chords. They want myth, I give proof. Want chaos, I give truth. Every empire hums when it's weak. I hear the pitch before it bleeds. Roulette eyes, dead calm grin. I don't gamble, I decide who wins. When the crowd starts holding breath, that's not fear, that's respect. Don't ask if I fell from grace. Grace stepped aside. Don't ask what it cost me. I charged interest. I didn't break the spell. I learned. Lights out, kneel slow.